The spirit of a master, one who had once grasped the truth of the world and stood at the edge of reaching its pinnacle, was said to be seeking someone worthy to inherit the unfinished mission and guide it to completion. It once seemed like nothing more than a legend, but that belief changed, for the ancient spirit had chosen him. They were supposed to stand at the top of the world together. That's how it should have been. But now, the guidance had suddenly stopped. At that moment, the scene shifts to Baek Jayun, head of the Fire Dragon sect and leader of the Blood Demon sect. A subordinate approaches him, excitedly presenting their success, the first living survivor of the immortal body experiment. The experimental subject, though alive, burns with hatred, blaming Baek Jayun for destroying his family and vowing never to forgive him. The subordinate violently tightens the rope around the subject's neck, silencing him and questioning his right to speak as an outsider. Yet despite everything, this subject is different. Unlike previous ones, this one could communicate and had survived for weeks without food or water. Baek Jayun rises from his seat unimpressed. After years of effort, the result was nothing but a grotesque monster. For him, those who carried out the experiment were fools unworthy of reaching the summit. The desperate subordinate pleads for more time, convinced the immortal body could still be completed. But suddenly, his arm begins to move against his will. Confused and panicked, he watches as it acts independently, and the object he holds is forcefully consumed. In seconds, his body begins to react violently. Transformation sets in, twisting his form into something inhuman as he screams for his master. Meanwhile, Baek Jayun walks away, blood dripping from his mouth. He wonders why the spirit no longer responds, believing it still dwells within him. He begs for the secret of immortality to be revealed, craving the final piece of the immortal body technique. Unexpectedly, the experimental subject approaches from behind. It had already achieved immortality. Just as it prepares to strike, Baek Jayun activates his power and restrains it, realizing the spirit may have chosen a new vessel. The transformed subject curses them all, vowing to carry his hatred even into hell. Baek Jayun, frustrated and betrayed, questions why the spirit would abandon him after everything he accomplished in its name. But the subject, now filled with truth and clarity, tells him that he still failed to see the reality of the world. Then, right before his eyes, the subject shifts into a monstrous creature. Something terrifying enough to make Baek Jayun tremble. The realization hits hard. His strength was not enough. In an instant, the creature kills Baek Jayun and speaks of a world ruined by hatred and loss. It vows to take care of that world. A red energy begins to rise from its head, catching the attention of nearby subordinates, who prepare to strike back. The creature stands firm and delivers a single command. Destroy every stronghold, absorb their power, let nothing remain above, and when the time is right, rise once again to the summit. The scene then shifts to an old man telling his family that he'll be back later. His son, clearly worried, asks him to take care of himself. Without saying much, the old man heads out and walks toward a distant place. Eventually, he arrives at a temple. Inside, he finds his old companions waiting. Looking at them, he acknowledges their presence with a calm remark. It's been a while. Among the group is Yukbi, known as the Fist King, who agrees with a short nod. Then comes Jin Seolhee, the Northern Empress. She silently wonders why they summoned that old man too. Another elder, Abbot Hyun from the Shaolin Temple, respectfully greets him. Soon after, Baek Muryong, the leader of the Fire Dragon sect, steps forward to welcome him, calling him the Sword Emperor and asking if everything had been well. The old man removes his sedge hat and cuts straight to the point. He says there's no need for meaningless chit-chat and reveals that he noticed spies tailing him the moment he left the martial world. With sharp eyes, he demands to know why they brought him here. Baek Muryong drops all formalities and gets to the heart of the matter. Wudang, Zhonghan, Huashan, and many other major sects had been destroyed by just one man. They know nothing about who he is or what he wants, but those who survived call him a demon obsessed with fighting, the Mad Demon, and today, they intend to stop his madness. Suddenly, the temple gate shatters and the Mad Demon storms in. He says he followed a powerful energy and has arrived at a familiar place. Seeing all 5 great leaders gathered, he guesses they were expecting him. The old man takes a long look at him. His instincts scream, this is him. The title Mad Demon isn't just a name. The aura feels like death itself. Without wasting another second, the old man draws his sword. He declares that the Mad Demon alone is reason enough to wield his blade once again. In a flash, he charges forward and attacks with his heavenly sword. The strike is so powerful it slices the Mad Demon's body into pieces. The room goes quiet. Yukbi casually tells the old man to take it easy. He finds it boring that everything ended so fast. He even mocks the idea of a so-called Mad Demon. But then, he notices something strange. No one else is reacting. Everyone stands frozen. Just then, a laugh echoes through the temple. The Mad Demon speaks again, surprising everyone. His severed body starts regenerating right before their eyes. Yukbi can't believe what he's seeing. Is this a dream? Baek Muryong watches in shock, realizing this might be the legendary martial art, the immortal body technique, so it does exist. Now fully restored, the Mad Demon laughs with delight. Things are getting interesting now. He asks if they're ready for some fun. Yukbi panics and shouts at the old man to get away from him. But the mad demon grins and says he already had his fun with the old man. The others watch in horror as blood pours from the old man's body. He collapses to the ground, lifeless. And with a wicked smile, the mad demon looks at the rest and says, "All right, who's next?" Jin Shulhi turns to Baek Moryong, trying to keep him calm. As the head of the Fire Dragon sect, she expects him to know something about the situation. Though uncertain, she recalls seeing this martial art mentioned in ancient texts. Meanwhile, Yukbi glares at the fallen old man lying on the ground. Anger boils inside him. Just then, Baek Moryong senses a sudden surge of destructive energy in the air. Without holding back, Yukbi lets out a furious roar and charges straight toward the mad demon. Seeing him approach, the mad demon smirks and recognizes him, the Fist King. Yukbi doesn't waste a second and launches his powerful explosive fist gale technique. The entire area shakes from the impact, creating a massive explosion. Baek Moryong, watching closely, admits the martial art truly lives up to its name, but deep inside, he knows it won't be enough to defeat a monster like this. Yukbi stares in disbelief. The mad demon is still standing, completely unfazed. Confusion hits him. His most powerful strike landed directly, yet the enemy's strength seems to be growing instead of fading. The mad demon acknowledges the attack. He praises Yukbi's technique and promises to return the favor properly. Without warning, he unleashes the same explosive fist scale right back at Yukbi. But just before the impact, Abbot Hyun jumps in to block the attack and saves Yukbi. The price, however, is heavy. His wrist gets slashed in the process. The mad demon scoffs, telling Abbot Hyun that it's not his turn yet. Abbot Hyun fires back, refusing to back down and calling him a fool. With a grin, the mad demon taunts him. For someone so bold, he sure looks like he's struggling. Yukbi, feeling guilty, apologizes to Abbot Hyun for dragging him into this. But the abbot brushes it off. If Yukbi hadn't stepped in, he would have. Right now, dealing with this monster is more important than guilt. The mad demon laughs again, impressed. A body tough enough to survive the Fist King's attack, he finds it fascinating. With that, he rushes forward to strike Abbot Hyun. But before he can land the blow, Jin Seolhee pierces him with her sword. Ice spreads rapidly over the mad demon's body, freezing everything it touches. He immediately recognizes the technique. It's from the Northern Sea Ice Palace, a legendary martial art he had only heard about in tales. Jin Seolhee, full of fury, silences him with a cold glare. The mad demon shivers, literally. The chill pierces his bones. He admits the 5 great masters truly live up to their name. Each one of them possesses martial arts that have reached the absolute peak, and he's absolutely loving it. Now it's Baek Moryong's turn. He steps forward with his sword and offers the mad demon a glimpse of the Fire Dragon leader's martial art. Without hesitation, he attacks. But when the smoke clears, the mad demon is untouched. He laughs and mocks the effort. That's all? Baek Moryong calmly replies that the fight is far from over. The real show is just beginning. Suddenly, strips of cloth-like energy begin to emerge from inside the mad demon's body. They quickly wrap around him, coiling tighter and tighter until his whole body is bound, just like an Egyptian mummy. Panic spreads across the mad demon's face. He demands to know what's happening and what Baek Moryong has done to him. His strength starts to drain away, and within moments, his entire body is sealed and completely frozen in place. Abbot Hyun stares in disbelief. He's never seen anything like this in his life. Curious, he asks Baek Moryong to explain. Baek Moryong reveals the secret. It's the Eclipsing Blade, a powerful treasure passed down through generations of Fire Dragon sect leaders. Those struck by this sword are said to be trapped in eternal darkness. However, since no one ever used it before, they have no idea how long the seal will actually last. The scene jumps forward, 3,000 years into the future. A timestamp flashes. Endurance, 2,600 years. We're now in planet GSP, Zone 3. Inside a vast exhibition hall, a man named Mark politely warns someone nearby. He's from the Earth promotion team and reminds the visitor to be careful around the fragile exhibits. The visitor turns to Mark and asks if he's the only one from the advanced team. Mark explains he's not alone. Another team member is with him. He glances around, wondering where his partner went off to without saying a word. His partner, Lena, the leader of the Earth promotion team, quietly mutters to herself that she's finally arrived on this cursed planet. Mark calls out to her from behind. Lena looks at him unimpressed and questions why he's so excited. Mark shrugs it off. Until the main team shows up, they don't have much to do. So why not enjoy this like a vacation? Lena isn't amused and tells him he's quite bold. Mark admits he didn't expect someone like her to volunteer for the GSP team. Lena raises an eyebrow and asks what he means. He points out that for someone who usually freaks out at the idea of aliens, suddenly signing up for a mission where every alien in the universe is gathered is pretty surprising. He adds that there are alien species here that don't even exist on Earth. Lena cuts him off, saying it's still a dangerous place, but Mark brushes it aside, reminding her that during the tournament, everyone stands on equal ground. Lena isn't so sure. She glances around at the aliens nearby, all looking relaxed and confident. Her eyes land on a balloon Mark is holding. Clearly annoyed, she snaps that she's done with him and tells him to stay inside the exhibition hall. Mark asks why. Lena responds sharply. He's either gutsy or foolish to want to hang around such creepy aliens. Mark warns her that comments like that can be risky, even if things seem equal. Lena clarifies, things aren't equal at all. That's exactly why it's dangerous, and a rookie like him wouldn't understand. She then declares they've finally arrived. This is where they'll rise to stand as equals with the rest of the galaxy. Mark confirms they've reached the GSP tournament arena. Right then, a booming alien voice welcomes everyone from across the universe. It's a grand announcement for the greatest cosmic festival, held once every 100 years. This tournament is where civilizations can rise in power overnight. The GSP fighting tournament has officially begun. Mark now sees the real reason Lena came here. She wasn't just sightseeing, she wanted to watch the tournament. Lena corrects him. Her goal is to study their enemies and find their weaknesses. Mark mentally sighs, wondering what nonsense she's talking about now. The alien announcer continues. The next match is between two civilizations. Ranked 972nd is Agni, the representative of the Ifrit civilization, and his opponent is Panon, ranked 9630th, from the Piglo civilization. The battle for Group 6 is about to begin. Meanwhile, back in GSP Zone 3 Z District inside the Planet Promotional Hall, the story shifts. One worker urges another to finish the job quickly, the other agrees. But right beside them is something strange. The preserved body of the mad demon, still sealed like an ancient statue. Suddenly, the second worker pauses, claiming he just heard something. The first guy brushes him off, saying all he hears is nonsense. But then, something eerie happens. The mad demon's sealed eye slowly opens. He's awake and watching. We're then given some important context. On planet GSP, located a staggering 500,000 light-years from Earth, a grand combat tournament is held once every 100 years. Civilizations from all corners of the universe take part. The winning civilization is said to unlock the ultimate truth of existence and be freed from all suffering. No more disease, no hunger, and no war. The proud government of Unified Earth, or GUE, has officially qualified for this tournament. And representing Earth is the strongest individual the planet has to offer. Inside the tournament arena, a fierce battle is already in progress. The announcer hypes up the action, praising the fighters of the living flame species. As soon as their restraints are removed, the entire arena bursts into flames. In the chaos, a battered warrior named Panon gasps, cursing his fiery opponent. His enemy, Agni, pushes forward with even more flames, fully intending to roast him alive. The audience is going wild. The announcer, clearly having placed a bet, is all in on Agni and encourages him to put on a show. Agni's popularity is off the charts, and he's clearly the crowd favorite. Agni, now inches from Panon, demands his full attention. One glare and he completely incinerates Panon with a deadly breath of fire, strong enough to melt military-grade spaceships. The announcer confirms what everyone is thinking. Agni is simply too powerful for a Tier 1 civilization. Agni laughs like a maniac and brags to the crowd, calling them fools for doubting his power. Watching all this, Mark is understandably shaken. He questions how anyone is supposed to fight such a monster. Finding a weakness seems pointless now. Lena admits he might be right. Even she feels uneasy. Mark insists they're wasting their time, but Lena explains her real observation. None of the aliens from Tier 3 or higher are even paying attention to the match. She expected more concern given what's at stake, but to them, Earth is nothing. A weak Tier 1 civilization. And that arrogance? That's exactly what they'll exploit. She tells Mark that if he understands her plan, they should keep hunting for weaknesses as originally intended. Mark, still confused, asks why the Earth promotion team even needs to do all this. Just then, they notice a young alien crying nearby. She's from the Piglo species and mourns Panon's defeat. Mark recognizes her. She's just a child. Sadly, the Piglo civilization had bad luck in their match. They were pitted against one of the strongest Tier 3 opponents. A bystander comments that the flames have cooled down, but Panon is nowhere to be seen. He casually assumes Panon has turned to ash and blown away. Mark senses danger and prepares to warn the team leader. But the Piglo child snaps back, telling the rude alien not to speak recklessly about Panon. The rude one isn't impressed. He mocks her species for being lowly and says she has no manners. The child claps back, pointing out that he's just a little one too. Mark, now extra nervous, suggests to Lena that they leave before they get caught in the fight. The rude alien gets angrier. He calls the Piglo girl a pig and says something interesting. On his planet, he's considered a normal guy. That alone is terrifying. Mark shouts a warning, it's clearly getting dangerous. We finally learn who this rude alien is. His name is Pixie, ranked 1300, and he's the engineer representative of the Pixie civilization. Pixie leans toward the Piglo girl and threatens her. He claims he could destroy her planet's strongest warrior in just 10 seconds. Lena isn't impressed. She asks if that's really something to brag about to a child. Pixie demands she repeat that. Lena doesn't hold back. She reminds him that he's just a regular guy on his planet, and his attitude screams loser energy. Pixie fumes and wonders aloud if all the weaker civilizations have taken some anger pill, because they're seriously ticking him off. Mark nervously asks if he's included in that group of bastards. Lena casually insults Pixie again, calling him a loser and asking what good his anger will do. That's the last straw. Pixie steps forward, ready to show them just what he's capable of. Mark panics and yells at Lena to back away. He doesn't want to get caught in the mess just because she's standing next to him. Lena, of course, is offended. She asks if he's really about to abandon his team leader. Pixie launches forward with a punch. But just in time, a security drone swoops in and halts the fight. Pixie freezes for a second. Lena smirks. These drones patrol the entire arena. And with so many of them around, what exactly can someone like Pixie do in this stadium? The security drone turns to Lena and asks if the Pixie being had caused her any harm. With a faint smile, Lena explains that while he didn't directly hurt anyone, the idiot suddenly began flexing his muscles, probably drunk. His show-off act was so awful that she lost her appetite. Still, she brushes it off like it's no big deal. The drone, now curious, asks if that was true. Lena throws the question at Pixie, accusing him of showing off his rugged physique to a Tier 1 civilization like theirs. Pixie, boiling with rage, struggles to keep it together. Mark leans toward Lena and nervously whispers that the guy looks furious. His eyeballs are practically falling out, but Lena stays calm. She says that before someone like him actually hurts anyone, it's better to report the truth and let the system handle him. This, she adds, is her way of punishing him. The drone questions Pixie directly, asking if he really wanted to show off those useless muscles. Pixie, holding back his anger, admits it. He says yeah, he just wanted to show off, and since that's not a crime, he walks off with a cocky farewell, calling them pests. Mark, watching him leave, mutters to himself, "See you again?" and hopes he doesn't even appear in his dreams. He turns to Lena and asks if she had expected this outcome. Lena casually confirms it. She's not reckless enough to mess with a monster like Pixie without a plan. Suddenly, the little alien species walks up and thanks Lena for helping her. But Lena snaps back, asking who helped who and tells her to get lost. She's ruining the game. The poor child flinches in fear. Mark thinks to himself that Lena must have had one of her sudden mood swings again. He then gently tells the little one to head back to her family, reminding her she just heard how scary this Ani can be. The child slaps his hand away and calls him a coward. Mark is baffled. He was scared too, so why does she only lash out at him? The focus then shifts back to the match, where the crowd is busy criticizing Panon. Lena, watching, thinks to herself that she expected this. But still, the gap between their civilization and a Tier 3-1 feels utterly hopeless. Agni, meanwhile, is laughing and says it's been a long time since he played hide-and-seek. Lena watches, wondering if there's truly no way for Earthlings to beat a monster like that. She snaps herself out of that thought and tells herself to stop having such weak thoughts. Mark notices something's off and wonders why Lena is acting like this again. He asks if she's okay. Lena brushes it off and tells him not to worry. Then, suddenly the announcer yells out. Through the blazing fire, Panon has returned. He charges straight at Agni's blind spot. With his life on the line, he lands a desperate blow, a perfect hit that could critically damage Agni. Mark calls out to Lena in excitement, but she misunderstands and tells him to stop fussing. She already said she's fine. Mark clarifies it's not about that. The staff has reported an issue with the exhibit and they want her to check it immediately. Lena and Mark start walking away. Lena reminds him that she had asked him to double-check everything earlier. Mark insists he had done it, but agrees that something strange is going on. Lena isn't surprised. She says she knew something would go wrong the moment Mark got excited about taking a vacation. Mark still finds it odd. According to him, there really shouldn't have been any issues. Lena sighs and lets it go. She's already seen everything she wanted from the match anyway. She reminds Mark that even he saw it. She can't believe it either. Panon actually landed a hit on that monster. And now, it feels like maybe these powerful enemies aren't completely unbeatable. But just as she finishes speaking, someone sneaks up from behind and punches Mark in the back. Lena, turning around, casually asks, "What's with the wind?" Sometime later, Lena slowly regains consciousness. As she opens her eyes and gets up, she sees that Mark has fallen unconscious and is being held captive by members of the Pixie species. Seeing him in that state, Lena immediately calls out, urging him to wake up. One of the Pixie aliens hears her and mocks her concern, asking if the guy she's calling Mark is the one on the ground. He assures her, sarcastically, that they haven't killed him yet. Fuming with anger, Lena yells at them. She demands to know if they're doing all this just because she teased them earlier. She reminds them that they're on planet GSP, where the security team would soon be deployed. But one of the Pixies isn't impressed. He mocks her, questioning how someone from a lowly civilization dares to act so confident. According to him, most of the planet's security systems are based on their technology, and he's already taken control of the devices in this building. He then rants about how the Galactic Federation has become weak, accepting incompetent civilizations like hers. Lena snaps. She shouts back that they never even wanted to join the so-called useless Federation. It was the Pixie species who forced their way in, and now, because of the infectious disease they brought along, billions of Earthlings are dying in pain. Yet this same Federation, who keeps preaching about non-interference, has done absolutely nothing to help. Her words make the Pixies burst out laughing. One mocks her boldness, saying she's just openly admitting how ruined her civilization is. Another chimes in, scoffing at her complaints. He asks if she really expected the Federation to be some kind of charity. He finds it laughable that a civilization still struggles with infectious diseases. To him, primitive beings like that belong in museums. Suddenly, a new voice echoes through the room. It's the unmistakable voice of the Mad Demon. He wonders aloud who dared to summon him and then identifies the pixies as the culprits. He sarcastically comments that while Shaolin Temple is famous in the martial world, its interior design has become overly luxurious. He'd believe this place was a private room in a fancy inn. Lena is stunned. She hears his words and wonders if this man might actually be an earthling. But one of the pixies snaps at him, demanding he speak the common language and calls him trash. The Mad Demon, completely unfazed, questions what nonsense they're talking about. According to him, it's not just the decor that's changed. Something is clearly off here. Lena, now desperate, yells at the stranger. She tells him to go out and report everything to the security team. These pixie aliens are clearly violating Federation rules. The pixies, sensing something is off, grow suspicious. One of them accuses the two of plotting something and threatens them with death. The Mad Demon, however, just laughs. He says he finally understands. There are still people who haven't changed. Without warning, he unleashes his deadly move, Vortex Wind Fist. With a single powerful attack, both pixie aliens are struck down and die instantly. Lena is left in shock, completely stunned by what just happened. The Mad Demon walks over to her, still grinning. He tells her not to be so flustered. She can understand his language, right? He has a lot of questions, and if she tries to run without a reason, he'll kill her on the spot. Lena, still trying to process everything, looks at the man in front of her and asks if he really has questions for her. But more than that, she wants to know. How did he just do that? The man, unfazed, warns her to speak clearly if she values her life. Lena quickly realizes the issue. He doesn't understand the common language. Without wasting time, the man demands to know where they are. Lena replies, explaining that this is the promotional building located on Street Z. Confused, the man mutters in disbelief. This wasn't the Shaolin Temple? The energy in this place is nothing like that of Shaolin, and the noisy atmosphere doesn't suit a temple filled with bald monks. Now growing more nervous, Lena tries to understand just what this guy is. The language he speaks, the way he looks, he's clearly a human from Earth. But there are no visible devices on him, so how did he cause that massive explosion? Before she can get her answers, the man grabs her hair in anger and scolds her for wasting time. Lena quickly removes his hand and demands to know his identity, asking him to state his affiliation. He looks surprised and asks if she really doesn't know who he is. Lena, still confused, says she has no idea. Was he supposed to be some kind of celebrity? Right then, a furious pixie species soldier charges from behind to attack the man, shouting at him for daring to challenge someone superior. Just as the pixie throws a punch, the man effortlessly slaps his arm aside and mocks him for being a brute with no real skill. He then punches the pixie hard in the stomach, sending him flying while questioning if these people even train their internal energy. Lena is left stunned. He blocked that huge attacker with just one hand? Again, the man asks if she truly doesn't know who he is. Lena begins to doubt herself. Could he really be someone famous on Earth? With this level of strength, it would be odd for people to not know him. Trying to stay calm, Lena apologizes and explains that she spends most of her time on other planets due to her job, so she's not really updated on Earth-related things. The man, now even more confused, questions everything. Other planets? Earth? What was she even talking about? Lena calmly repeats her point. Her job keeps her busy off-planet, so she barely gets time on Earth. Just then, Mark regains consciousness. He stumbles over to Lena and asks what's even happening. The man looks at Mark and scoffs, wondering why more weaklings keep showing up. Mark, just as confused, asks who this stranger is. Lena admits she doesn't know either. Mark then wonders aloud. Was he supposed to be famous? Turning back to the stranger, Lena thanks him for saving her but makes it clear. If he doesn't reveal his identity, it'll be hard to cooperate any further. The man laughs and mocks her attempt at a threat. But then, with dramatic flair, he proudly introduces himself. He is the Great Demon, Ma Jinwal, the one who destroyed the 4 great sects. Mark raises an eyebrow and silently questions this entire situation. That name, this setting, it all felt way too childish. He leans toward Lena and whispers that this guy doesn't seem mentally stable. Lena, still trying to understand what's happening, repeats the name. The Great Demon. She doesn't really get what that means, but she agrees. The name definitely sounds intense. The pixie species slams his hand on the ground in frustration, shouting that he actually lost to that trash. Mark, unable to hold back his anger, confronts the pixie, asking why they're even here. Was this because of what happened earlier? Still fuming, the pixie mutters that if only he didn't have the suppressor on, things would have been very different. Lena turns to the Mad Demon and curiously asks if he really thinks he can beat that guy in his current suppressed state. Mark, completely done with the situation, urges Lena to stop talking nonsense and just run away with him. But the Mad Demon lets out a laugh. Was that pixie really going easy on him earlier? That's what they're saying now? Lena steps in, saying they should try to get more information from the pixie first. Mark, now fully panicked, yells at Lena for letting her guard down at such a dangerous moment. Of all people, she should know better. Lena responds calmly, saying she knows the risk, but she has a gut feeling. This could actually be a rare opportunity. Mark clearly doesn't agree. He asks what kind of opportunity she's even talking about. He's had enough and insists they should just escape. But Lena stands her ground. She decides to stay and watch the fight unfold. Mark bolts from the scene, yelling that everyone has lost their minds. He wants no part of this madness. Lena watches him go, thinking maybe Mark's right. This is crazy. But then again, the Mad Demon had just stood up to a literal monster without flinching. The sheer presence he showed, the overwhelming power. Even if it was thanks to the suppressor, a Tier 1 Earth human pulling this off was beyond impressive. Maybe, just maybe, there was a real chance here. Suddenly, the pixie soldier screams at the top of his lungs. To hell with the regulations, he'll kill the Mad Demon with his own hands. Lena's eyes widen. This pixie isn't suppressed anymore? And he belongs to a species that can freely manipulate metal? That could be very bad. Even the Mad Demon seems impressed. He sarcastically comments on the show before him. The pixie then launches a full attack, sending sharp metal objects flying toward the Mad Demon, crushing him under a pile of debris. With a smug grin, the pixie tells him to experience the difference between their civilizations and die. But then, from beneath the rubble, a smile appears. The Mad Demon emerges, brushing off the metal like it's nothing. He says this power is too tempting, and he wants it for himself. Now the pixie starts to panic. How did that trash break through his cosmic force? Could he really be stronger even without the suppressor? The thought alone shakes him. In desperation, he hurls another chunk of metal at the Mad Demon. But when the dust settles, the Mad Demon is casually sitting on the pixie's shoulder. This throws the pixie into a rage. How dare someone like him act superior? The Mad Demon jumps down from the shoulder, ignoring the insults. The pixie demands to know what trick he's using. The Mad Demon just laughs and asks if this is how it's done. Then he attacks, causing a massive explosion. Lena gasps at the impact. Even the Mad Demon looks surprised. How is he suddenly using this civilization's cosmic force? Now he's grinning ear to ear. So this is what cosmic force feels like? He loves it. In return, he decides to show off a little of his technique. The pixie, furious, launches a counterattack, screaming at him for daring to imitate their power. But the Mad Demon isn't imitating. He's doing it his own way. With full force, he slams his fist straight into the pixie's gut and blows right through him. Laughing, he proudly declares that he just robbed him. Lena watches in stunned silence. He actually won. A human from Earth just defeated a Tier 3 civilization using their own cosmic force. That's insane. The Mad Demon casually walks toward her, still buzzing from the fight. He admits that this martial art is exciting, downright exhilarating. He then asks her to take him to those bald guys. Lena grabs his hand, now finally understanding his purpose. So this is why he came here. He snuck onto this planet to prove his strength. She gets it now. She agrees to take him to a place with even stronger opponents, so he can become Earth's representative in the GSP tournament. On the battlefield, a new presence arrives. Virtues, the judge of the GSP planet. Observing the aftermath, he calmly asks if a pixie resident lost control and ended up endangering his own kind. Mark watches the situation unfold and starts to panic. Bringing the Mad Demon here might have been a huge mistake. Virtues looks around and analyzes the scene. From what he can tell, some third party seems to have interfered. If even a Tier 3 pixie got defeated, that likely means someone from a higher civilization, or maybe a combat-focused one, was involved. Hearing this, Mark connects the dots. It makes sense. No one would believe that a mere human caused this much damage. That gives him a window of time to contact his team leader. Virtues then turns to Mark and asks what's troubling him. Trying to stay cool, Mark says he's not worried at all. But Virtues isn't buying it. He tells Mark not to even try hiding it. He clearly sensed that something was bothering him. Mark finally gives in, realizing there's no point lying to Judge Virtues. He admits he's just worried about the safety of his kin. Virtues glances at the destruction and responds bluntly. The kin probably aren't safe, considering what happened. The suspect looks like a serious criminal. But he reassures Mark, saying that the best investigators from Planet GSP are already reconstructing the crime scene. The truth will come out soon. Mark realizes what's happening. This must be the legendary machine memory Spectre. Technology that literally recreates the past. He'd only heard stories about it before. If he sticks around like this, just then, a chunk of debris is about to fall on him. But Virtus steps in, unleashing a burst of his power to stop it. He tells Mark not to be too downhearted. A blinding light flashes as Virtus activates his full energy. With all the dramatic flair of a true judge, he declares that he, Virtus, the judge of justice, will avenge Mark's kin. Mark watches in stunned silence. This was getting seriously out of hand. We then flash back to 30 minutes earlier. The Mad Demon was explaining everything to Lena. After the previous chaos, he regained consciousness and found himself here. Lena thinks over his words. Martial world ceiling? It all sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi novel, but it explains how he could suddenly speak a language he didn't know before. Maybe it was from absorbing the pixie's power, but something doesn't add up. She's never heard of a cosmic power that lets someone absorb abilities. If that's not it, then how does this even make sense? Could humanity have lost such powers long ago? Maybe it's some kind of lost technology. As the Mad Demon begins to walk away, Lena calls out, asking where he's going alone. He shrugs it off, saying he doesn't need her help anymore. Lena shouts for him to stop. She promised to take him there. But he waves her off. He says he'll find the place himself. Lena chases after him, warning that this world isn't the one he knows. With a sigh, the mad demon says he gets it. This world is different. Still, the doorway ahead catches his attention. He tells her not to follow if she doesn't want to. Stepping outside, he sees strange-looking creatures. Confused, he wonders what those even are. Lena appears beside him and places a hand on his shoulder. She welcomes him to the 26th century. This era is known as the Age of Space Exploration. Humanity has finally reached out to civilizations beyond Earth. The mad demon, still unimpressed, asks what's so great about dealing with these weird aliens? Why even make a big deal about it? Lena poses a question. If they were to rank all known civilizations based on their power and development, where does he think humanity stands? Wearing a casual t-shirt now, the mad demon shrugs. He has no clue how many civilizations are out there, so how would he even guess? Lena explains that there are around 20,000 civilizations in the universe, and sadly, humanity sits at the very bottom of the ladder. The mad demon raises an eyebrow. Even the bald guy he just defeated is included in that ranking? He can't help but wonder if humans are just that dumb. Lena agrees with the mad demon's statement, but politely asks him to watch his words. She explains that in this vast universe, civilizations are ranked on a 5-tier scale. As she mentioned before, humanity is at the very bottom, classified as a Tier 1 civilization. And sadly, even among the Tier 1s, Earth is the weakest. The mad demon laughs, clearly unimpressed. He mocks the ranking system, calling it useless. Lena, visibly annoyed, questions his attitude. But the mad demon continues, saying if he were in her place, he would have focused on gaining real strength instead of worrying about rankings. Changing the topic, Lena brings up her formal proposal once again. The mad demon, confused, asks what she's even talking about. She reminds him that he wants to meet and fight strong beings, and luckily there's a way to do just that. She explains that on this planet, GSP, a universal combat tournament is held once every 100 years. In this event, warriors far beyond imagination take part. She suggests that he represent Earth in the tournament, where he'll get the fights he desires. The mad demon realizes she's basically asking him to fight on their behalf. Lena admits that's true, but emphasizes it's also about fulfilling his wish to meet powerful opponents. The mad demon instantly shuts her down. He's irritated. Just because they exchanged a few words, she thinks she can use him? He mocks her, asking if he looks that stupid. Lena tries to reframe her request. She apologizes if it came off wrong and offers it as a request instead. If humanity does well in this tournament, they'll be able to move up the civilization tiers. The mad demon scoffs again. He still doesn't understand why this ranking even matters. Lena yells that it's not just some meaningless score. The mad demon pushes back. What difference will it make? Even if they climb a few tiers, will their weak core change? Lena responds firmly. What if it does? To advance, all they need is good results in the tournament. The civilization tiers are based on cosmoforce, a type of life energy that defines existence. In this universe, all powers that defy logic are born from those who can control this mysterious energy. The mad demon finally gets the point. They want to use this hidden power, but it only becomes available once they level up. Since humanity has no real shot at winning, they want him to take on the monsters for them. Lena confirms his conclusion, but she adds that advancing doesn't just unlock powers, it brings knowledge. Knowledge so rare, it can't be gained in a lifetime. That catches the mad demon's attention. Knowledge that can't be earned in a lifetime, Lena explains further. All the knowledge humanity has collected until now was thought to be the result of centuries of effort. But when space exploration began, they learned the truth. What humanity thought it earned was just a small fragment. Information continuously transmitted from the massive brain of a giant at the edge of the universe. And then come the ones who control that brain's knowledge, the End Sapiens. They're the only Tier 5 civilization that exists today, and they're the hosts of this dreaded tournament. These beings strictly control how knowledge is shared, giving different civilizations unequal access. The mad demon listens, but his boredom shows. He repeats what he said earlier, so in the end, she just wants him to fight so she can get what she wants. Lena agrees, but she urges him to consider the bigger picture. What he has to do is for the sake of all humanity. The mad demon turns away, rejecting her plea. Instead of wasting time explaining things to him, she should find someone who shares her beliefs. According to him, there's no fool alive who'd risk their life for others. But just then, before he can walk away, Virtus appears in front of him. Using his immense power, he slices the mad demon's body into pieces. With a calm tone, he declares that the judgment has been executed. Lena is stunned. Her eyes widen as she watches the brutal scene unfold. Virtus steps toward her next. He accuses her of being involved in the murder of the Pixie resident and says he will now judge her too. Power begins to surge around him as he prepares to strike. But then, a voice comes from behind. A low, angry voice says, "This really hurts." To everyone's shock, the mad demon begins regenerating, his body putting itself back together right in front of their eyes. Lena watches in disbelief. Her mind races. He's alive? The mad demon glares at Virtus, furious. He demands to know what that bastard thinks he's doing, leaving him in this condition. Then, with raw fury in his voice, he warns Virtus not to move, otherwise he'll end up the same way. The scene shifts to planet GSP Sector 3, specifically Sector C. A group of piglo species is seen walking together, chatting casually. Among them is a little piglo named Mala. She recalls how an Earthling girl once helped her during a difficult moment. Another piglo, Grog, connects the memory to the fight with the pixie resident. He's surprised, saying Earthlings seem braver than the rumors suggested. The third piglo, Kulak, quietly adds that he owes that Earthling a debt of gratitude. Just then, a fourth piglo joins them. It's none other than Panon. He playfully asks why they're having such a cheerful conversation without him. Grog fills him in, saying their youngest got into some serious trouble while cheering for everyone during the battle. Mala spots Panon and runs up to hug him tightly. Grog then asks if Panon is okay, considering everything he's been through. Panon assures them that he's just fine and ready to fight if needed. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted by a loud explosion in the distance. People around them look ahead in shock. An emergency announcement echoes through the streets. Judgment Virtues has appeared. All citizens are ordered to evacuate immediately. He's chasing an Earthling accused of killing a pixie resident and then escaping. Grog is stunned. The words Pixie Sage and Earthling catch his attention. Kulak says the combination sounds strangely familiar. Just then, Mala grabs Panon's fingers tightly. Panon notices and asks her gently if something's wrong. Meanwhile, in the chaos of the city, a fierce battle is underway. A nearby building collapses. Lena watches it all, completely shocked. From the rubble, the mad demon laughs. According to him, this is exactly what happens when someone recklessly blows apart his body. Suddenly, bright lights begin flashing from the ground beneath his feet. The mad demon notices and smirks. It seems someone's finally coming out. Without hesitation, he jumps down into the wreckage. From inside the debris, Virtus rises. He admits that what he saw earlier was unbelievable. He asks if the mad demon really absorbed the pixie resident's cosmo force. If so, he's much more dangerous than expected. The mad demon laughs again, asking if Virtus is already starting to regret touching him. Without waiting, he smashes the ground with his foot, unleashing the earth-splitting explosive technique. It's clear he's done playing around. On the other side, Lena watches the fight in confusion and thinks to herself, what on earth is he doing? Suddenly, someone sneaks up from behind and covers her mouth. It's Panon. He tells her to calm down. He's here to rescue her. Grog follows closely behind. Panon turns to him, annoyed, and says he told him to stay away with Mala. Lena, confused, recognizes Panon. Isn't he the Piglo race's representative? The same one the alien kid was cheering for earlier? Panon throws Lena over his shoulder and mutters to himself. No one listens to him. Not this guy, not that guy. Grog quickly informs him that Mala is safe with Kulak so he can focus on escaping. Lena then asks Panon what he plans to do with her. He answers sincerely. He's here to repay the favor she once did for their kind. The Piglo race never forgets a kindness. Lena, still confused, asks what he means. Panon explains the grim truth. Saving her species is impossible. The judges chasing her are monsters, finalists from the GSP tournament. Facing them is hopeless. Back on the battlefield, the mad demon goes on the offensive. He creates multiple clones and charges at Virtus. Virtus, observing calmly, realizes that the pixie civilization's force isn't all that Earthlings have. He stretches out his hand and fires an attack, releasing a blinding flash of light. He then mocks the move, calling it just a trick. But right then, the real mad demon appears behind Virtus. He was waiting for this moment. He whispers that he knew Virtus would say that. Virtus quickly counters. He raises a single finger in front of the mad demon's face and unleashes another devastating attack straight at him. Panon is seen carrying Lena as they move quickly through the area. Lena struggles in his arms, telling him to let her go. She insists that if someone needs saving, it should be the guy still fighting, not her. Grog, clearly frustrated, yells back. Didn't she hear what he said earlier? What could they possibly do against a monster like Virtus? Panon snaps at him to stop talking. That Earthling was the one who saved Mala. Grog protests again. He asks how long Panon is going to stick to these old traditions, but Panon is firm. He says their civilization has followed these ideals for generations, and he won't be the one to break them. Just then, a scorched and burning figure crashes down in front of them. It's the mad demon, badly injured and smoldering. Panon looks at him and jokes. It's like a pile of dry firewood just fell from the sky. Lena quickly recognizes him and tells Panon that this is the Earthling she was asking them to help. Panon realizes the situation. If this guy was fighting Virtus, then Virtus is likely headed their way too. Grog panics. He urges Panon that they need to run now, even if it means leaving the others behind. Otherwise, they'll end up just like the mad demon. But Lena stops them. She tells them to take a good look at him. The mad demon suddenly starts screaming, writhing in pain. Grog stares in disbelief. He asks, "What is that thing? It's still alive?" Despite being burned by Virtus' flames, the mad demon is rapidly regenerating. Grog wonders aloud if the Earthling's cosmic force is actually regeneration. Such a powerful ability seems way too impressive for someone like him. Before they can process it all, Virtus arrives and demands they surrender the criminals and leave. Grog sees the opening and whispers to Panon that this could be their chance to escape. Panon then turns to Lina and asks if she believes that guy can survive. Lina says yes, she's already seen him recover from worse. Panon thinks quickly. If that's true, then they must take him to the GSP registration office immediately. If he becomes a GSP fighter, even Virtus won't be able to lay a finger on him without consequences. Grog is terrified. He begs Panon not to go through with this, but Panon ignores him. He steps forward to face Virtus and tells the others to run to the registration office while he holds Virtus back. As Grog carries Lina away, he looks back at Panon and shouts. He doesn't even know what's right anymore, but begs him not to die. Panon simply replies with confidence. If they succeed, they'll gain a powerful weapon that could catch even Virtus off guard. Virtus laughs at the idea of anyone escaping him. He begins charging an attack aimed at Grog and Lina, but Panon stops him with a surprising revelation. Before becoming a judge, Virtus was definitely a Halicionian, and the weakness of Halicionians, those who wield the power of light, is darkness. Panon proudly declares that today, the Piglo civilization's cosmic force happens to align with darkness. Surely this must be a sign from the ancestors, a command to help Mala's savior. The scene shifts to the GSP registration office, where staff member Kiranos stands facing Lina and Grog. She politely apologizes, but it's clear she isn't budging. Grog, already losing patience, tells her to stop with the apologies and just get the registration done already. Lina tries to reason with her, reminding that she's the official representative of Earth. Kiranos glances at the Mad Demon, who despite being bruised and battered, insists he's fine. He tells her to hurry. Thanks to his ultra regeneration, he's good to go. Their loud voices catch attention nearby. A curious species overhears the noise and wonders what the commotion is all about. Another one responds, saying it looks like some Earthlings are trying to register for the GSP tournament, but are getting rejected. Hearing that, the first one chuckles. Earthlings participating? That weak civilization? If he ends up fighting one of them, it'll be a free win. He jokes that they have to help them get in. It'll be too easy. Soon, more species gather and start pressuring Kiranos. They all shout at her, asking what she's doing. She better register them quickly. Every civilization, no matter how weak, has the right to participate in the GSP. Was she discriminating against a lower-tier race? As the crowd grows louder and more demanding, Kiranos gives in. She agrees to process the registration. Lina, not missing the moment, says that's how it should have been from the start. Before moving forward, Kiranos asks them to confirm one thing. Where's the player who needs to be registered? That question catches Lina and Grog off guard. They look around in panic. Where did that guy go? Meanwhile, on the battlefield, Virtus has Panon by the head, lifting him with ease. He questions Panon's choices. Why would he risk his life for these Earthlings? He says he simply can't understand the logic of lower-tier civilizations. But just as things start looking grim, the Mad Demon returns and launches a surprise attack at Virtus. He shouts that this time, Virtus is definitely going down. Virtus calmly raises one hand, blocking the hit. He taunts them again, saying it's no surprise lower civilizations make such poor decisions. Suddenly, Panon makes a bold move. He seals Virtus's abilities temporarily and yells at Mad Demon to strike while the chance is open. Without wasting a second, the Mad Demon charges in with full force. He says Virtus can decide whether his martial arts are weak or not after taking this punch. And with that, he lands a powerful blow right on Virtus. The scene shifts to the Z District Planetary Promotional Center in Zone 3. Mark is seen sitting alone, lost in thought. He blames everything on Lina's interference, believing none of this would have happened if she hadn't meddled in the first place. Suddenly, a noise catches Mark's attention. A loud explosion erupts right in front of him, and he jumps in shock, trying to make sense of the chaos. His mind races. Was this a terrorist attack or just a freak accident? The focus then moves to Virtus, who is still standing firm despite the earlier clash. Watching this, the Mad Demon bursts into laughter, clearly amused. He mocks Virtus for surviving such a strong blow and decides it's time to steal that power for himself. But Virtus is furious. He yells out in rage about his mask being damaged, a mask that was directly blessed by the Divine. He's not letting this slide. He charges up an attack and launches it at the Mad Demon, determined to tear him apart like an insect. The Mad Demon, unfazed, dodges the attack with ease. He chuckles, pointing out that Virtus's flickering movement technique is a bit annoying, but not enough to scare him. Virtus suddenly appears behind him, grabs him midair, and hurls him away like yesterday's trash. Without wasting a second, Virtus unleashes another powerful attack, causing a huge explosion on impact. Meanwhile, Mark is on a call with Lina. He confirms her suspicions. The guy she warned about is indeed here. Lina sounds relieved, glad that Mark is safe. But Mark isn't feeling lucky. He tells her things are far from safe. The guy's here, but the situation is anything but under control. Grog, overhearing the situation, is stunned. He wonders how the enemy could recover from such a severe injury so quickly. Mark responds with concern. He says it's not the time to relax. The danger is still real. Back on the battlefield, Virtus eyes the Mad Demon. He's clearly surprised. Despite taking serious damage, the enemy is still standing. Virtus can't understand how a being from a lower-tier civilization could possess such insane power. But he's had enough. He decides it ends now. Power surges into his hand as he prepares for one final blow. Just then, Kyranos intervenes, telling Virtus to stop. She reveals that the Earthling has been officially registered to represent Earth in the upcoming GSP tournament. Her mind races in disbelief. How could he have been here all along without anyone noticing? The scene jumps to 30 minutes earlier. Representatives of various species are gathered, urging Kyranos to register the Earthling. But Kyranos, clearly annoyed, tells them that stubbornness won't get them anywhere and suggests they calm down and act in moderation. Grog, never one to stay quiet, snaps back and calls her out as a racist. Lena joins in, asking Kyranos to be more flexible with her responsibilities. Kyranos, now visibly angry, yells at them to get a grip. Among the crowd, one of the species steps up and asks if there's a system for provisional registration in case the competitor can't be present. Another one chimes in, saying they've heard of such a rule too. A third one seems surprised it even exists, confused why they never knew about it. Kyranos silently thinks to herself that, of course, they wouldn't know. It's not meant for lower-tier civilizations. But then an idea hits her. If used smartly, this rule might actually work in her favor. She then tells everyone that she's understood their request. With a sly grin, she places a stack of documents before them. She tells them that if they can fill these forms by hand and submit them, she'll process the registration. But if they can't even do that much, they should just quit and go home. Grog picks up the documents, confused. The text isn't in the common language. It's written in a script used by upper-tier civilizations. He has no idea how to read it and complains loudly. Kyranos, acting innocent, says it's unfortunate he doesn't understand. Grog gets angry and demands a version in the common language, but Kyranos refuses. She explains that the provisional registration system was made for the convenience of advanced civilizations, so naturally, it uses a language they're familiar with. Hearing this, one of the species doubts the whole process. He questions why they're so desperate to register right now. Another one agrees. If there's no urgent match, why not just bring the competitor later? Meanwhile, Lena, silently determined, starts trying to fill the form. Grog notices and asks if she actually understands the language. Kyranos notices this and begins to panic. She takes the papers from Lena, stunned. Her thoughts race. Could they really be bluffing? How could someone from a lower civilization possibly read or write in such an advanced script? With a normal Earthling's brain, even identifying the characters should be a nightmare. It's hard to believe they could memorize millions of symbols and vocabulary, let alone use them correctly in full sentences. She concludes that if the Earthling truly wrote this, then they must have learned every possible sentence structure too, which seems impossible. Not even a language specialist civilization like hers could do that so easily. Still, she admits to herself that helping someone isn't illegal, so their registration stands. Back in the present, Virtus observes all of this through Kyranos' mind using his telekinesis. He concludes that someone must be secretly helping them. Kyranos agrees, thinking it's possible someone guided them behind the scenes. But she still finds it hard to believe. To write in that complex language as if solving picture puzzles, memorizing massive vocabulary and sentence structures, that's beyond ordinary ability. It's too much, even for experts. Yet, the rules weren't broken, so the registration remains valid. Virtus, processing everything, says he understands. Someone is risking their life for that Earthling, and now there's even a hidden ally teaching them advanced languages behind Kyranos' back. It's as if the whole universe wants to protect this guy. He decides to let it go for now, but warns that he'll need to handle their little tricks eventually. With that, Virtus grabs Mad Demon and Panon, and the three begin to disappear together. Meanwhile, Mark updates Lena on the call. He says Virtus has taken the Mad Demon and some other scoundrel and vanished. Grog and Lena are both shocked. Grog is extra salty. He just heard Mark call his brother a scoundrel. Kyranos rolls her eyes and tells them to calm down. She explains that both fighters were simply transferred to the competitor recovery room. Then, without wasting time, she shoos them away. 1 week later, the scene moves to the GSP competitor's recovery room. Mark and Lena are standing beside Mad Demon, watching his slow recovery. Mark looks skeptical. He questions if that ragged mess could even compete again. Lena stays hopeful, assuring him that he'll recover soon. Just then, the Earth GSP team commander, Clarice Ive, arrives. He doesn't share Lena's optimism. According to him, Mad Demon looks half dead. He regrets trusting them and decides to go ahead with the original plan, using the other competitor for the match in 2 days. Lena pleads for more time, hoping for a second chance. But before she can say more, a new guy rushes in. He jumps and lands dramatically in front of everyone, calling Lena out for being fooled by a swindler. His name is Marcel Blade, the official Earth representative. Lena immediately moves to help Mad Demon, but Clarice stops her gently. He rests his hand on her shoulder and reassures her. Marcel is Earth's strongest warrior, personally chosen by him. And the suit Marcel's wearing? It's the peak of all human knowledge packed into one armor. After this match, Clarice promises, no civilization will dare to look down on Earth ever again. We're then given a quick glimpse into the civilization rankings. Sitting at the 10,320th spot are the Bizerians. Their home planet? An actual hellscape, made of dense rock, constantly spewing lava and toxic gas. To survive in such chaos, the Bizerians had no choice but to evolve their bodies to the extreme. Cut to Lena, who starts briefing everyone about their current opponent, Crocs Jabrick. Even among the Bizarians, he's infamous for his insane physical power. She's about to explain what to watch out for in the match when the GSP tournament's combat team manager Marshall Steele interrupts. He shrugs off her concerns, saying the Bizarians are at the same civilization level as Earth, so there's no need to overthink. He dismisses Lena, reminding her that the PR branch got trashed in a recent alien skirmish and jokes that she's got nowhere else to go. Ouch! Talk about rubbing salt into wounds. Just then, a security drone hovers in, announcing that the next match's contestants should head to the waiting area. Marshall Steele stands up, saying it's their turn now. Lena tries to stop him, bringing up her strategy, but Marshall brushes her off. He boldly claims that they don't need strategies, they'll just enjoy the show. Lena snaps, demanding to know where his confidence is coming from. She reminds him that he's been stuck on Earth and doesn't understand that aliens don't play by Earth's rules. Against a higher civilization, only smart strategy and solid analysis can win a match. She makes it clear, humans are at the very bottom of the universal food chain. Tactics are their only chance. Suddenly, Clarice Ive fires a shot from his gun to cut her off and delivers a sharp remark. According to him, her speech wasn't exactly inspiring. He also hints that maybe she's gotten a bit too distant from Earth and is underestimating humanity's strength. In a surprising move, Marcel casually catches the fired bullet with his hand. Marshall Steele, stunned, mutters that the old man really did pull the trigger. Clarice continues. He reminds them all that humanity has spent the last century preparing for this tournament, piling in budget, time, and manpower. They're not messing around. Marcel, now fully suited up in his armor, turns to Lena and urges her to believe in him. With a cheerful tone, he asks her to cheer him on, and then he confidently walks off toward the battlefield. Inside the tournament arena, the announcer hypes up the crowd. He declares that the 8th bracket preliminaries are about to begin. Meanwhile, Mark is sitting alone, snacking, wondering where on earth team leader Lena has gone. Right then, Lena shows up, snatches his food, and questions why he's eating by himself. She also questions what kind of food it is, and if it's even edible. Mark casually mentions that he ran into some folks claiming to know her. Lena is puzzled. Acquaintances? Before she can think further, Grog and his companion walk up and sit nearby. Lena, suspicious, asks if they've been following her. Grog plays it cool, calling it a coincidence. He adds that her matchup luck seems pretty great, and this one should be an easy win. Just then, the first contestant enters, Marcel, stepping in as Earth's representative. Grog stares at Marcel and asks Lena who this guy is. Wasn't someone else supposed to represent Earth? Panon replies from the side, explaining that the other guy is still in the recovery capsule. Lena asks how he knows that. Panon raises his arm, revealing something on his wrist, and asks if she recognizes it. Lena looks closely and realizes it's a force suppressor. Panon confirms. When he woke up from the recovery capsule, the suppressor was already attached. Depending on who wears it, its shape and position can change. He believes the other guy should have one too. He then points out that if they think hard, wasn't there something strange attached to his body? Lena tries to recall, and yes, he was wearing something around his neck. Could that be the suppressor? Mark, clearly confused, asks what a force suppressor is supposed to do. Lena explains that just like the name suggests, it suppresses cosmo force. Panon adds that some abilities, even if used briefly, can drain a person's life. That's why any civilization using cosmo force must wear suppressors when visiting other planets. And for contestants, those suppressors can't be removed outside the arena. Mark is shocked. So the martial arts technique the guy used wasn't just physical combat, Lena confirms. It's believed to be a kind of cosmo force. Though rare, even rapid regeneration isn't unheard of. Then Lena thinks deeply. Based on what Mad Demon described about Earth's ancient powers, this ability feels way too unique to be lumped under just cosmo force. Whatever happened while Mad Demon was sealed must have been something far beyond anyone's expectations. As the announcer calls out the next contestant, he hypes up the crowd by mentioning that the next fighter is a survivor from one of the harshest environments in the universe, representing the 10,320th ranked civilization, the Bizarians. Meanwhile, in the stands, a pixie species figure turns to his servant and orders him to verify if the masked contestant is really the Earthling. The servant steps forward, squints a little, and confirms that although the mask hides his features, it's probably him. They were informed that he'd be representing Earth. The pixie nods. So it's really him. Crocs' supporters begin cheering excitedly, ready for their fighter to appear, but their excitement quickly turns to confusion when, instead of Crocs, someone else enters the arena. It's not Crocs, but a member of the pixie species named Twinkus. The announcer does a double take and shouts out in confusion, "That's not Crocs. Who dares to barge into someone else's match?" Twinkus, calm as ever, gives a grand introduction. In the crowd, Mark stares in disbelief. A Pixian? Is this for real? The announcer isn't amused. He yells at Twinkus to stop the drama, stop interrupting, and send out the real contestant. With a sly smile, Twinkus replies that Crocs Jabrick won't be participating in the match. Instead, he politely offers to take Crocs' place. The announcer explodes with anger. This is a sacred arena, not a street play. He demands Twinkus leave immediately. Even Crocs' own supporters lose it, shouting in panic, "What did you do to Crocs? This guy's completely crazy." Trying to take back control, the announcer demands silence and warns everyone to choose their next words wisely. Twinkus steps forward and calmly states his case. He reveals that, just because the Earthling is a GSP contestant, no punishment was given. But in truth, the Earthling is a murderer. He killed an innocent member of the Pixian race. Gasps echo through the crowd. An Earthling killed a Pixian? Is that even possible? Twinkus explains further. He knows it's hard to believe, but everyone knows Pixians wear suppressors. The Earthling took advantage of that weakness and killed his kin in cold blood. Now Twinkus begs for a chance to avenge those who died unfairly. Even the announcer pauses in surprise. Could it really be true? Now that he thinks about it, the promotional center on Z Street was completely destroyed. Mark, panicking, turns to Lena. This is clearly a misunderstanding, right? Lena stays calm and reassures him. No one would take such a ridiculous claim seriously. But then, the announcer shocks everyone by approving Twinkus' request. He allows him to take Crocs' place in the match. Internally, the announcer is thrilled. A warrior stepping in to avenge his people? Now that makes for a show way more exciting than watching low-rank insect fights. Lena is furious, calling it absurd. But before she can protest more, Mark tries to calm her down, telling her not to do anything reckless. At that moment, a Bazarian steps forward and asks what will happen to their race now. The announcer doesn't even blink. He activates his power and shatters the Bazarian's skull without hesitation. Lena and Mark are both horrified. Without wasting any more time, the announcer declares that the match has already been delayed long enough. It's time to begin. He then introduces the substitute contestant, Twinkus, representative of the Pixians, a race ranked 1300 in the Galactic Civilization rankings. Known as the universe's top mechanical civilization, Twinkus is about to take part in a deadly match. Will he be able to avenge his fallen kin? And with that, let the match begin. With that, the third match of Group 8 officially begins. The audience erupts, not with cheers, but with hate. They start chanting, "Death to the murderer," and hurl insults and objects at the Earthling. Meanwhile, director Clarice is watching the chaos unfold live on television. That's when Lena storms in and questions him. How could he sit around so calmly? She insists he must protest to the tournament committee immediately. Clarice looks confused and asks, "Protest what?" Lena snaps back, shocked by his question. The opposing contestant was switched mid-match. It's a clear violation of the tournament rules. But Clarice shrugs it off. So what if it was changed? Didn't she see who gave the order? It was Ensapian Leviathan, one of the 6 gods of the universe. Who in their right mind would dare defy a god's decision? Lena grits her teeth in frustration. So the tournament rules were never real to begin with? Fine. In that case, she'll treat the system with the same level of respect it deserves. None. Back in the arena, the crowd keeps chanting loudly, "Execute the murderer." The hate intensifies as objects are thrown at Marcel. Confused, Marcel wonders what's going on. Just moments ago, the atmosphere felt completely different. And who's that guy standing across from him? That's not the same person he saw during the morning briefing. Something clearly changed while his suit was being repaired. But then again, does it even matter? Marcel charges at Twinkus with full force. His objective is clear: crush the enemy in front of him for the sake of humanity. Just as Marcel is about to land a hit, Twinkus dodges skillfully. Marcel acknowledges the reflexes. Impressive, but warns that things are only getting started. He spins, leaps into the air, and launches another wave of attacks. Watching the fight, Mark is blown away. Marcel isn't holding back at all. Grog agrees, this Earthling is performing better than expected. Panon notes that Marcel's non-stop strikes are giving Twinkus no room to fight back. Then, Marcel activates his armor and hurls the Hyper-Engage Buster straight at Twinkus. It hits with a massive explosion, shaking the entire arena. The announcer dramatically declares that the arena floor is being torn apart by the overwhelming power. Could this be the end for Twinkus? Marcel looks calm and confident. He believes victory is already his. Watching from the sidelines, Clarice Ive reflects quietly. Once again, Marcel has pulled off the impossible, just like the very first day they met. A flashback begins. In a past mission, Marcel and Clarice were hiding from a group of terrorists. During the mission, Clarice turned to the young soldier and gave him an order. He would distract the enemies while Marcel escaped and alerted headquarters. Clarice insisted that wiping out this murderous group was a top priority, but before Clarice could act, gunfire erupted. Surprisingly, it came from Marcel. Shocked, Clarice asked what he was doing. Marcel calmly explained. He would carry out the general's second mission immediately: exterminate the enemy. Without waiting, Marcel marched forward. Clarice shouted after him, warning him not to be foolish. But the enemies had already noticed Marcel. They opened fire, but the bullets did nothing. One of them panicked. What kind of monster doesn't die after being shot? Moments later, Marcel eliminated every last one of them. After the mission was done, he walked back to Clarice and casually asked if they should return to headquarters together for the next mission. Back in the present, the smoke begins to clear. The announcer squints through the haze. Could it be? Yes, it's Twinkus. The match isn't over yet, but he's standing still, not a single movement. Has he taken damage? Marcel watches cautiously and acknowledges the sheer endurance of his opponent. He begins charging an attack in one hand. But just then, something horrifying happens. His arm suddenly snaps off. Both Marcel and Clarice Ive are shocked. The announcer confirms it with a stunned voice. Marcel's left arm has been ripped off, and the one responsible? None other than Twinkies. Pain shoots through Marcel as blood gushes from his injury. Completely rattled, he wonders aloud what just happened. Twinkies calmly replies, almost mockingly. He asks why Marcel is so surprised. Hasn't he faced his children before? Marcel, confused and still in pain, demands to know what Twinkies means. Before he can process anything, Twinkies launches a powerful attack. Marcel's armor shatters completely, and he's thrown backward, crashing to the ground. Twinkies eyes him with doubt. Could this guy really be the one who killed Pixie? He turns to his servant and orders him to check Marcel's face. The servant inspects and quickly reports back. This isn't the same person. Twinkies sighs and walks forward, muttering that he knew it. There was no way Pixie and Flock could have fallen to someone this weak. Furious now, Twinkies demands to know where the hell is the real culprit. The announcer jumps in with a grim update. Twinkies rips off Marcel's leg. The poor earthling screams in agony. At this point, it's no longer a match. It's turned into a full-blown torture session. Twinkies uses his powers to lift Marcel into the air like a helpless rag doll. Suddenly, Marshal Steele shouts at Twinkies, calling him out. He tells Marcel the match is already over. He should just surrender. But Marcel refuses. He reminds the director that this is more than just a match. It's a mission that holds the lives of billions of humans. Giving up isn't an option. He pushes himself one last time and tries to strike back at Twinkies. But it's hopeless. With minimal effort, Twinkies slams Marcel down, ending any chance of a comeback. The announcer delivers the final blow. Marcel's desperate move has failed. The Earthling's journey in the GSP tournament seems to be over. But just then, a defiant voice echoes through the arena. It's Lena. She marches in and demands to know who gave anyone the right to end someone else's journey. Without waiting, she throws something toward the stadium and declares that the journey of Earthlings is just getting started. The announcer, clearly annoyed, asks what she's doing. Why is she tossing trash into the arena? But Lena ignores him. She turns to Marcel, praises his bravery, and tells him his mission is over. From here on, someone else will carry the torch. At that moment, Twinkies' servant suddenly gasps. He's found the real killer, the one who murdered Pixie. Twinkies freezes. That guy? The trash that just came flying in? His eyes shift toward the object Lena threw, and realization hits him. Rising from the debris, brushing off dust and attitude alike, stands none other than the mad demon himself. Groggy but furious, he mumbles a string of curses promising death to someone, then pauses and looks around in confusion, muttering, "Where the hell am I again?" A few moments earlier, Marcel lay motionless on the ground. The announcer's voice echoed through the stadium, confirming what everyone could already see. Marcel had fallen, and there was no chance of a counterattack. Watching from the stands, Grog nodded with disappointment. This outcome was expected. Even though he had some hope, the gap in strength was just too much. Meanwhile, Mark was on a call with Lena. He informed her that Earth's team had been eliminated, but then she said something unexpected. She wanted him to come over immediately. Confused but concerned, Mark got up, muttering that Gate 5 should be nearby. What was going on all of a sudden? As Mark reached the area, he saw Lena running toward him with 2 security robots hot on her trail. She shouted at him to hurry up and stop them. But instead of jumping in like a hero, Mark did the sensible thing. He turned around and ran right beside her. Lena wasn't impressed. She reminded him that she told him to stop them, not run from them. Turns out, she was dragging something, or rather, someone, hidden in a cloth bag. Mark glanced at it and lost his mind. How was he supposed to stop 2 robots just like that? And more importantly, what on earth was she even carrying? Lena coolly replied that she was simply giving Earth's people a bit of hope. She promised to explain later but asked him to stall the robots as long as possible. Then, without warning, she punched him right in the face and took off again, yelling back that she wouldn't forget his sacrifice. Lena finally burst into the stadium with the robots still chasing her. Twinkies' servant stood nearby, watching it all unfold. One of the robots gave her a final warning to stop. But before it could act, Twinkies' servant turned around and was stunned by what he saw. Back on the mic, the announcer declared the Earthlings' journey in the GSP tournament officially over. But Lena had other plans. She threw the bundle right into the middle of the battleground and shouted at the top of her lungs. Who gave anyone the right to end someone else's journey? Security robots quickly seized her. The announcer, clearly annoyed, demanded to know what she was doing. He ordered the trash she'd thrown to be removed along with her, but Lena snapped back. Trash? The one lying there was no ordinary warrior. He was the mad demon, Earth's true representative. The same fighter who took down 2 Pixians all by himself. He even went toe-to-toe with Virtus. Panon smirked and pointed out that she conveniently skipped the most important part. Not that it made a difference to him. Hearing this, the audience murmured among themselves. Virtus? That couldn't be true. But wait, wasn't there a huge explosion on Z Street recently? Lena pushed further. If the enemy was allowed a substitution for the sake of revenge, then she had brought the true target of that revenge. So this substitution should be approved too. Grog doubted if such logic would work against an N-Sapien. Panon, however, called it a bold move, especially coming from an Earthling. The announcer admitted he was impressed, but reminded everyone that the match was already over. No matter the situation, once a match ends, it can't be undone. But then, against all odds, Marcel's voice rang out. He wasn't finished yet. He declared that he hadn't lost. Surprised, the announcer reconsidered and officially allowed the substitution. Clarice Ive looked on and acknowledged that Marcel had done enough. Lena smiled. This was enough. With this move, the future of Earth had been secured. Just then, the security robots began dragging Lena away. They informed her coldly that she would pay dearly for the chaos she had caused. While the arena buzzed with chaos, Twinkus was deep in thought. He had just heard that the human standing before him had defeated 2 Pixians. Could it really be that guy? But was he even alive? At that exact moment, the trash in question, Mad Demon, suddenly opened his eyes and stood up like nothing had happened. The announcer couldn't believe it. Earth's so-called representative had just made a full recovery. He was back on his feet, fully revived. The announcer pondered the situation. Regeneration, huh? Not bad at all. Things might actually start to get interesting. Mad Demon looked around, visibly confused. It had been noisy for a while, and he had no clue where he even was. But Twinkus wasn't in the mood for jokes. He finally had his moment, standing face to face with the guy who killed his kin. Revenge was just one punch away. Mad Demon wasn't impressed. The energy coming from Twinkus felt just like the guys he already beat. He had no interest in fighting weaklings anymore. Instead, he turned around muttering that he needed to find Lena and figure out what was going on. Twinkus wasn't letting him leave that easily. He grabbed Mad Demon by the arm, holding him in place. Mad Demon, annoyed, asked if this guy was always this clingy. He made it clear he didn't have time for useless weaklings. But Twinkus was done listening. Using his power, he launched Mad Demon into the air with ease. Mad Demon landed hard but started laughing. He had actually shown this guy mercy? Big mistake. He threw a strong punch right into Twinkus. But the attack did nothing. Instead, Mad Demon's own fingers broke on impact. He looked at his hand, puzzled. Something was wrong with his body. Twinkus was fuming now. Not only had this human killed his kin, but he also dared to mock their entire civilization. An insect like him had no right. With pure rage, Twinkus grabbed Mad Demon and slammed him into the ground like a rag doll. Mad Demon quickly rolled away, examining his body. Something felt off. He couldn't use any martial arts except for his Immortal Spirit Foundation. There was no choice left. He'd have to fight the old-fashioned way. Twinkus suddenly increased his size and came charging in with a monstrous punch. The blow was so powerful, Mad Demon's body exploded on contact. But this wasn't the end. In the blink of an eye, Mad Demon stabbed Twinkus right in the eye with his finger. Twinkus roared in pain. Mad Demon followed up by grabbing his jaw and slamming a punch straight into his chin bone. Twinkus didn't hold back anymore. He caught Mad Demon with both of his giant hands and crushed him with brute force. The result? Mad Demon's upper body was blown into pieces. The announcer shouted in awe. Twinkus had completely shattered Mad Demon's upper half using pure strength. Twinkus growled in frustration. He wanted to know what kind of monster he had just eaten. And the moment Mad Demon regenerated, he planned to crush him again. But things didn't go according to plan. Out of nowhere, Mad Demon emerged from inside Twinkus's mouth. Apparently, he had been swallowed whole. With a calm voice, he promised to give Twinkus exactly what he wanted. Twinkus froze in shock. And then it happened. Mad Demon ripped open Twinkus's mouth from the inside and tore his way out in the most brutal fashion possible. The announcer pointed out that Mad Demon was now using the energy from his regeneration to launch a powerful attack. But Twinkus, showing sharp instincts, quickly dislocated his own jaw to dodge a potentially fatal blow. Grog was surprised. Who would have guessed regeneration could be used for offense too? If Mad Demon landed just 1 or 2 more of those strikes, things could turn around fast. Panon, watching the intense clash, commented that the Earthling side might actually win this match with ease. But before they could get too confident, space journalist Ackerman showed up and interrupted their thoughts. According to her, their fighting skills were definitely better than their match analysis. Unfortunately for the Earthlings, she claimed that was the only real opening Twinkus had allowed, and it wouldn't happen again. In her eyes, the chances of that Earthling winning were now absolutely 0. Harsh, but she sounded sure of it. She casually sat next to them, which made Grog uncomfortable. He couldn't help but question why she was acting so friendly. But Ackerman simply introduced herself, saying she became interested after Panon's brother defeated Agni. Not to mention, he even blocked an attack from the supposedly invincible Virtus. That caught Panon off guard. Only a handful of people even knew he was part of that fight. But Ackerman, with a playful smirk, reminded him, she's a journalist, and she has her ways. Curious, Panon asked why she believed the Earthling had 0 chance to win. After all, he had fought fiercely against Virtus. Ackerman acknowledged that surviving Virtus, even if he was only using 1/10,000th of his power, was still impressive. But she explained that the Earthling only survived because he was a regenerator. He was more like a wounded beast barely hanging on, not a proud warrior ready to dominate. Grog countered that anyone who survived an encounter with a judge must have at least third-level civilization skills, but Ackerman warned them not to underestimate the strength of upper civilizations. One lucky win doesn't erase centuries of experience, and definitely not that of the 1,300th ranked civilization in the universe. Just then, Twinkus struck Mad Demon with a massive object. The ground beneath them began to crack from the sheer impact. Grog was stunned. Where had that giant thing even come from? Ackerman, unfazed, pointed out that it had been there the whole time. Most aliens, she explained, tend to underestimate metal manipulation, thinking it's just fancy magnetic telekinesis. But Twinkus could control metal down to the molecular level. He compressed it into a super dense ball to make it easier to carry. With the amount of metal Twinkus had, it was like the Earthling was fighting the biggest battleship in the entire universe. Talk about bringing a cannon to a sword fight. Twinkus followed up with a devastating blow, using his metal abilities to blast apart Mad Demon's upper body yet again. Grog was speechless. That tiny pixie alien had been hiding such terrifying power all along? Was he mocking them? Ackerman coolly responded that from a first-level civilization's point of view, it might look that way. Grog was confused, but she clarified she didn't mean to insult them. The GSP tournament was a universal event, held once every 100 years. It was a massive showcase of civilization's strengths and tech. Using their full abilities against a low-level opponent like an Earthling would be embarrassing. In fact, even winning could be seen as a loss. On top of that, the metal Twinkus used was considered the very heart of pixie aliens. Using it in a fight like this was already stretching the limits of their pride. Twinkus begins to reflect, sharing the story of his people, the greatest iron craftsmen in the universe. Every pixie is born with a few hundred grams of iron inside their body. By the 6th month after birth, this iron solidifies and is expelled through a ritual called iron ejection. The metal produced during this process is known as soul steel. It's not particularly strong, but every pixie sees it as a sacred part of themselves, a personal guardian of sorts. But everything changed when the Galactic Alliance arrived. The peaceful pixie civilization, which had always avoided conflict, was crushed in their very first GSP match. The entire universe watched and laughed. After that, their resources were looted under the mask of trade deals. Unable to bear the suffering of his people, the Pixie King began a desperate experiment. He made newborns consume metal for 6 months, hoping the extra iron would create stronger soul steel. The results were tragic. Over 70% of the children died, unable to eject the metal properly. Those who survived mostly produced low-quality metal, but among the rare 1% was one child who developed an exceptionally powerful substance. That child was Prince Twinkus. He survived the deadly trial and became the master of a new, unmatched material, eternal steel. Back in the flashback, Twinkus's aide smiles, impressed at how much control Twinkus already had over the metal. Twinkus, confident and proud, credits it to the hard trial he went through. Later that night, while Twinkus sleeps, his aide gently tells him a bedtime story, saying that the Pixie people have now become great warriors, strong enough to protect their own. As he leaves the room, he quietly wishes the prince pleasant dreams. The next morning, 2 men are seen talking while walking together. One of them says he heard a rumor. Apparently Prince Twinkus never even went through the trial. The other is shocked and questions the origin of the eternal steel. The first man suggests the king might have taken it from someone else and given it to Twinkus. That feels wrong to them. After all, so many had risked their lives for that metal. Unbeknownst to them, Twinkus hears everything. Deeply shaken, he runs back to his room and inspects the metal closely. Something feels off. The composition doesn't match what he remembers. A single haunting question crosses his mind. Whose eternal steel has he been using all this time? Days later, Twinkus finally uncovers the truth. Just then, his aide walks into the room, startling him. In that panicked moment, Twinkus accidentally attacks with the metal, and it hits the aide straight in the stomach. Horrified, Twinkus tries to explain. He didn't realize it was his aide. He never meant to use the power like this. He rushes to call for a doctor, but the aide holds his hand, stopping him. There's something he needs to say. He reveals that his grandson had died from the side effects of the iron ejection process. Around that time, the king, an old friend, had handed him the eternal steel. He then hands the metal to Twinkus, assuring him that no matter where the steel came from, the ability to use it was earned through the prince's hard work. He believes Twinkus will one day save their people. Though help arrives, it's too late. The aide passes away. From that moment on, Twinkus makes a vow to raise his civilization higher than any other with the power of eternal steel. Back in the present, the announcer yells in disbelief. Mad Demon is moving! Twinkus turns around and watches in shock. Somehow Mad Demon is rising again. Twinkus can't believe it. Even as a warrior from a third-level civilization, he's nearly out of Cosmo Force. Yet this first-level Earthling still has energy left? Mad Demon lifts his head and gives Twinkus a creepy, unsettling smile. The announcer was in utter disbelief, calling it an unbelievable sight as the Earthling rose once again. Questions flooded the arena. Was there truly no end to this? How long could he keep recovering? Twinkus, enraged, unleashed his metal ability, determined to keep attacking until the Earthling was dead. Suddenly, Mad Demon leaped forward, closing the distance between them in an instant. Twinkus was shocked, noticing how drastically different his movements had become. Mad Demon launched a sudden attack, which impressed Akramin. However, she believed it wouldn't matter, stating that a Pixian's skin was tougher than most metals. The announcer confirmed the blow connected with Twinkus's right cheek, but Twinkus quickly retaliated with a massive spear. The spear pierced straight through Mad Demon's chest, yet the Earthling countered with a powerful punch that sent Twinkus flying. As Twinkus was about to hit the ground, Mad Demon jumped again and delivered a crushing kick. Twinkus, now stunned, began to realize the Earthling had been hiding his true strength all along. Laughing, Mad Demon declared that the flow had returned and vowed to end things quickly. He followed up with a powerful punch, triggering a massive explosion. The announcer questioned whether this Earthling possessed more than just regeneration abilities. Watching from the sidelines, Lena expressed confidence in Mad Demon. Meanwhile, Twinkus' servant grew increasingly anxious. Akramin acknowledged the shocking turn of events, noting that while Pixians were known for brute strength and defense, they lacked the reflexes to block such attacks. Just then, it was revealed that Twinkus had used his metal powers to form a shield, blocking Mad Demon's devastating punch. Panon glanced at Akramin, who snapped back, frustrated that she might have been wrong for once. She told him to stop reacting to her every word. Mad Demon was now impressed, recognizing the toughness of the shield. At that moment, Twinkus' metal ability surged again, with the metal stabbing into Mad Demon's abdomen. Furious, Twinkus lashed out, declaring that a lowly creature like Mad Demon would never pierce the eternal steel. As long as the universe's strongest metal existed, the result wouldn't change. The metal had already spread throughout Mad Demon's body. Twinkus formed a protective dome of metal around himself, calculating that the Earthling's regeneration likely consumed energy. If he could endure long enough, his opponent might eventually run out of stamina. But to Twinkus' shock, Mad Demon shattered the shield instantly. Witnessing this, Twinkus' servant panicked, questioning whether Mad Demon had stolen a power in the past. Mad Demon then grabbed Twinkus by the face and hurled him into the air. Twinkus was stunned to think that even eternal steel, the pride of their civilization, had been pierced. His servant screamed in realization, claiming that Mad Demon could manipulate metal too. Twinkus was overwhelmed. How could a mere Tier 1 Earthling control more than one Cosmoforce? Things escalated as Mad Demon grabbed Twinkus' own metal and turned it against him. But before the attack could land, the metal began to morph. Twinkus, boiling with rage, couldn't believe a lowly creature dared touch eternal steel. Vowing never to forgive him, Twinkus enveloped himself in an armor made of his metal and charged toward Mad Demon. However, Mad Demon remained unfazed, readying his next attack, stating that armor wouldn't change the outcome. Despite that, Twinkus slammed Mad Demon into the ground. Mad Demon tried to seize control of the metal but failed. In a bold move, he tore off his own head and hurled it away, attempting an escape using his extreme regenerative abilities. Still assessing the situation, he realized the armor would not be easy to pierce. His thoughts drifted to the past, recalling an encounter with a man named Mang Dal. Back then, Mang Dal had mocked him, suggesting that only the Dark Lord himself should face the invincible Iron King. Mang Dal had been ready to fight, claiming to follow the martial way. Another man appeared during that memory, questioning if Mang Dal was truly the owner of the legendary Xuanwu armor or if it was all a myth. He accused Mang Dal of showing off to a child. Mang Dal asked who the stranger was, to which the man responded with a smile, mocking him again. Mang Dal had then launched an attack with his sword. Remembering that day, Mad Demon realized something crucial. Returning to the present, he closed in on Twinkus, deciding to use the technique he had learned. True Energy, Shattering Fist. The battleground fell into silence the moment Mad Demon struck. Then, Twinkus' armor suddenly cracked open and blood began to pour out. Mad Demon laughed as he reminded Twinkus of a simple truth. No matter how extraordinary a weapon may be, it is never the weapon that decides the battle. It's always the one who wields it. A security drone approached Twinkus and began scanning his vitals. Soon after, the announcer declared the result. Twinkus was unable to continue, and the match had officially ended. Grog reacted with excitement, pointing out the overwhelming power of a Tier 1 civilization. Panon remarked that if it had been the earlier opponent instead of Twinkus, he would have died much sooner. As Akramin walked away, she reflected on the nature of the universe. It had been roughly 15 billion years since its birth, and despite the infinite possibilities of Cosmoforce, she believed all outcomes had already been observed. Yet there was no data about the Earthling's strange phenomenon. She wondered if it was a new ability, or if someone had deliberately hidden it from the universe's vast network. The mystery began to pique her curiosity. The announcer loudly proclaimed the outcome of preliminary round 8. Earth representative Mad Demon had emerged victorious. Clarice Ive acknowledged that Lena, the team leader, had been right all along. No one could have predicted that such a monster existed among them. It was possible that they were witnessing a historic moment. The announcer followed up with a statement that sent waves through the audience. 3 representatives from Tier 1 civilizations had now defeated beings from higher civilizations in this tournament. Suddenly, Mad Demon launched himself toward the announcer, claiming that a strange energy had been bothering him since earlier. He believed the announcer was the one who stood at the zenith of this world. In response, the announcer unleashed a white smoke slash. The attack instantly turned Mad Demon's body into ash, leaving behind only a skeletal frame. Clarice Ive was visibly shocked by the sudden turn of events. The announcer, now serious, retracted his previous declaration. The match would instead be recorded as a draw. Soon, a security drone arrived and informed the announcer that the match he had just broadcast had achieved the #1 viewership in its time slot. Over 800 billion viewers had tuned in live, making it the most watched broadcast among 5 major regions. The announcer was taken aback by the numbers, but quickly regained his pride. It was only natural that he outshined the others. Just then, a strange species appeared and began collecting Mad Demon's skeletal remains into a bag. The announcer stopped him, questioning his actions. The being replied that he was only doing what he had been told, getting rid of the remains. Angered, the announcer rebuked the remark, calling the remains their star player. He insisted that someone from the same civilization should be entrusted with the responsibility of taking care of him. Lena stood surrounded by security robots who scolded her for breaking something of immense value. They warned that not even her entire civilization could afford to pay for the damage, yet her mind wandered elsewhere. She wondered how the match was going, recalling that Mad Demon seemed to be leading. She had also heard that Twinkus was considered a powerhouse among powerhouses. One of the robots snapped her back to reality, asking if she was even listening. She responded absent-mindedly, acknowledging Twinkus's strength. Just then, a security drone arrived and instructed Lena to follow. Leviathan had summoned her to collect her representative. Alarmed, Lena bolted from the spot, concerned about what trouble the so-called primitive had caused now. The drone soon delivered her to the announcer, informing him that the Earthling had arrived. The announcer addressed her casually, saying there was nothing urgent. Her representative was simply incapable of returning on his own. Though it might seem improper, some first aid had been administered. If she carried him to the recovery room, he would be fine. Later inside the recovery room, Mad Demon suddenly jolted awake, confused about his surroundings. Lena, standing nearby, noted his survival and marveled at his ability. She admitted it had been worth suggesting they move after attaching the suppressor. Irritated, Mad Demon questioned her presence and the unfamiliar devices surrounding him. Lena calmly explained that the equipment was meant to aid in his recovery. Mad Demon protested the idea of receiving help. She reminded him that, as a being from the weakest civilization in the universe, he was just another Earthling while wearing the suppressor necklace. Shocked, he tried to resist but found himself unable to move freely. Lena pointed out his helplessness, noting that he couldn't even escape on his own. Mad Demon calmed slightly but remained confused. He couldn't feel any energy flowing through his body despite no physical blockage. Something was wrong. Lena shifted the topic, asking him how it felt to experience the GSP tournament firsthand. When he seemed unsure, she clarified that the match against the Metal Warrior had taken place in the tournament arena. She asked whether the experience had ignited a desire to fight more opponents. If he agreed, she would remove the devices immediately. Angrily, Mad Demon demanded to be freed without further discussion. Lena realized her threats were ineffective and decided to proceed with a more dangerous approach. She told him she would release him for now, but as soon as he was free, he lunged forward and grabbed her by the neck. Furious, he demanded the removal of the suppressor around his neck. At that moment, Marcel entered the room, curious about the situation. He joked, wondering if they were in the middle of a lover's quarrel. Lena, unfazed, turned to Mad Demon and calmly explained that the suppressor could not be removed by force. However, she offered a simple bet. If Mad Demon could defeat Marcel in a fight, the suppressor would be removed and he would never be bothered again. But if he lost, he would take Marcel's place and compete in all the remaining preliminary matches. Lena and Mad Demon were seen sitting together, sharing a meal. During the meal, Lena asked about their upcoming fight, while Mad Demon expressed his desire to be free from the suppressor around his neck. Lena reminded him that they were there to eat because he was hungry. Mad Demon admitted that his stomach felt like it was about to burst and wondered if others experienced such hunger every day. Lena found his comment strange, pointing out that he spoke as if he had never felt hunger before. Mad Demon clarified that, although it wasn't his first time, it had been so long that he could barely remember the feeling. Lena questioned whether people in his past even ate at all. He responded that not everyone needed to, but at least they were stronger than the weak people of the future. Lena didn't take the insult lightly and told him that he might think differently after fighting Marcel. Mad Demon dismissed Marcel as an idiot. Hearing this, Lena turned to Marcel and asked him to say something instead of just eating. Marcel, still eating, casually mentioned that he held over 40 black belts in martial arts and had military training in deadly techniques, though he had lost a limb or two. Mad Demon remained unimpressed, stating that the outcome wouldn't change with or without limbs. Marcel, irritated by the remark, yelled in response. Mad Demon claimed he was only stating facts and suggested Marcel just admit defeat. That statement triggered Marcel to remember that it was Mad Demon's fault he lost his limbs in the first place. Mad Demon called him a coward for blaming others for his weakness. After listening to their exchange, Lena declared that since both were full, it was time to settle things once and for all. They soon arrived at the GSP practice arena on the 80th basement floor. Lena explained that now they could fight without any interruptions. Mad Demon remarked that they could have fought at the restaurant itself, but Lena reminded him that unlike his era, the future wasn't a violent one where people could fight anywhere. Mad Demon mocked the future, calling it full of cowards. Marcel turned to Lena and expressed concern. He said that although they were cooperating for Earth's sake, this situation didn't feel right. He admitted that Mad Demon had beaten Twinkus and that even with the suppressor, he didn't think he could take him on, especially in his current condition. Lena, smiling, reassured him that everything was already prepared. She asked Mad Demon to wait a bit while they set things up. Mad Demon was surprised there was actual preparation involved and noted that Marcel looked a bit scared. Marcel got angry at the comment but stayed silent. Lena then brought out a device. Curious, Marcel asked about it. Lena revealed it to be his new leg. Though it might feel awkward at first, it would automatically adjust to his body. Shocked, Marcel recognized it as an artificial leg from planet Artanos. Lena confirmed it and said she used her savings and got help from teammates to acquire it. She added that buying an arm as well would have been too expensive. Overwhelmed, Marcel teared up and promised to do his best, even if it cost him his life. Lena gently told him that such a sacrifice wasn't necessary. Impatient, Mad Demon yelled at them to hurry up, desperate to remove the suppressor. Marcel assured him he was coming. Just before the battle, Lena told Marcel that there was something important he needed to hear. They entered the battlefield. Mad Demon looked at Marcel's new leg and mocked the preparation, calling it just a toy. Marcel retorted, defending the prosthetic. Lena warned Mad Demon not to underestimate them. With a creepy smile, Mad Demon claimed he wasn't the arrogant one. It was them. Then, without hesitation, he charged toward Marcel and launched an attack. Marcel dodged the strikes with sharp movements, surprised by Mad Demon's speed and technique. Mad Demon attempted a powerful palm strike in frustration, but Marcel swiftly ducked and countered with a sharp kick to Mad Demon's face. The impact knocked Mad Demon back, sending him crashing to the ground. Marcel looked at him and realized that things were unfolding just as Lena had predicted. Just before the match began, Marcel reflected on Lena's earlier words. He had asked her whether she really expected him not to be afraid after watching Mad Demon's last match. Lena had confidently replied that if he fought as he normally would, victory would be easy. Marcel agreed to give his best, but was curious about her confidence. With a light laugh, Lena had explained that Mad Demon's current physical condition was below average due to the suppressor. She told him that the device wasn't designed for civilizations of lower tiers. In the grand scale of the Galactic Federation, lower civilizations like theirs weren't accounted for. She compared the suppressor's effect to giving a mouse an elephant's tranquilizer. Since Mad Demon wasn't using any martial arts yet, he remained unaware of how severely the suppressor would react once the fight truly began. Back in the present, Marcel wondered how Lena knew the suppressor's effects on a first-tier civilization. Normally, these devices were only used on second-tier civilizations. He found it puzzling. Meanwhile, Lena silently recalled the past 2 decades. It had been a long journey. During that time, the Galactic Federation had ignored and even turned a blind eye to the notorious Cosmic Trafficking Organization. While hiding in the shadows, she had gathered a wealth of information. Now, standing firm, Lena declared that with a master who truly understood the weapon called knowledge, things would change. And this time, the alien forces would have to be on guard. Marcel struck the Mad Demon in the face with his knee, sending him crashing to the ground. Lying there, the Mad Demon cursed his fate, blaming the cursed necklace for his weakness. Lena stepped forward, telling Marcel that she needed to leave soon and suggested ending the training session for the day. Marcel glanced at the Mad Demon, then looked at Lena, questioning if this kind of training would really help in the next match. He recalled the Mad Demon's words that without the suppressor, someone like him wouldn't stand a chance. Lena responded with a question, asking what he thought separated higher civilizations from theirs. Marcel assumed it was the ability to use Cosmos Force. While Lena acknowledged he wasn't wrong, she explained the difference on a deeper level. She said it was about the potential to break the limits of common sense and physical boundaries. For Tier 1 humans, concepts like bodies engulfed in flames or creating weapons instantly were beyond logic. But for higher civilizations, such feats were natural, like breathing. She imagined a future where humanity could evolve to such an extent that even the impossible might become normal, flying without aid or growing extra limbs. She revealed that the way to measure such potential was through knowledge. The higher a civilization's rank, the more knowledge it possessed. And knowledge wasn't just about having information, it was about how one used it. Without learning, one might not even be aware of their weaknesses and could face defeat. In Mad Demon's case, since the first match had drawn significant attention, it was likely his abilities had already been analyzed. For him, dodging and defense were only support tools. His fighting style resembled that of aliens with regenerative powers, not humans, and that similarity could become his fatal weakness in future matches. Marcel grew curious, noting that Lena seemed to view Mad Demon more as an alien than a human. But Lena assured him there was no need to worry. Despite his behavior, Mad Demon was genetically 100% human. She had personally confirmed it when given the chance. Marcel then wondered why, even after passing the first preliminary round, they hadn't experienced any noticeable changes. Lena explained that the changes would happen gradually. According to the principles of civilization advancement, the representative evolved first upon winning a match. Other members of the species did not evolve immediately, and while the representative maintained their ranking, the entire civilization would gradually progress. This led Marcel to a realization. The more victories Earth's representative earned, the closer humanity would come to unlocking knowledge beyond current scientific understanding. And with such breakthroughs, they might even discover a miracle cure to save humanity. Just then, a space journalist named Kyranos appeared. She questioned whether the true purpose of this training was to enhance Mad Demon's strength under restrictions, implying something seemed off. After that, she introduced herself. Lena recognized her species, calling her an Inforian. Marcel, unfamiliar with the term, asked about it. Lena explained that Inforians were eerie beings capable of reading minds with a pen-like device. Hearing this, Kyranos realized Lena already knew about her kind. Lena then challenged Kyranos, asking why she called the training strange after suddenly showing up. Kyranos clarified that it wasn't the training itself, but Lena's explanation that sounded strange. According to Kyranos, Mad Demon's abilities already surpassed those of a Tier 1 civilization. He was closer to a third-level civilization. If Lena's theory were correct, then they should have sensed a shift in their civilization the moment Mad Demon was registered as Earth's representative, but there had been no sign of that. Kyranos suggested that perhaps Mad Demon was a separate entity altogether. This revelation startled Lena. Kyranos then offered to confirm his identity, claiming she could reveal secrets even science couldn't uncover. But before she could continue, Marcel threw a cloth at her, warning her to stay back, saying they couldn't trust her. Kyranos considered luring Marcel to a place where she could remove his suppressor and eliminate him, but she decided against creating unnecessary trouble. There was still plenty of time. Understanding their distrust, Kyranos agreed to leave. But before going, she told them that if they ever wanted to uncover Mad Demon's true identity, they could reach out. She admitted her own curiosity about him, then disappeared into the distance. Marcel turned to Lena and asked her opinion on what had just been said. Lena dismissed the concerns, saying it was likely just baseless curiosity about Mad Demon. She reminded him that they had no other options left. Their only task was to put everything on the line and help Mad Demon win the next match, no matter what. 15 days later, the scene shifted to the Grand Tournament Stadium. The announcer declared the beginning of the second preliminary round, Group 8 match. The first player to enter the arena was introduced as the representative of the Transferee civilization, ranked 5,830th in the universe. He was a mysterious being who had cleared the first round in record time. With the ability to control his own cosmos energy, and empowered by the energy of 400,000 of his kind, he stood as a guardian deity of his planet. His name was Birkin. As Birkin entered the arena, he removed the suppressor on his body and let out a deafening roar. The announcer noted that a powerful beast had just been unleashed. Watching the scene, Mark remarked that such sights weren't something one witnessed every day. Lena calmly replied that their side was no different. Mark asked her what she meant by that, but she simply told him to wait and see. The announcer continued, now introducing Birkin's opponent. Despite being from the lowest-ranked Tier 1 civilization, this player had managed to defeat Twinkus, the greatest metal controller in the universe. Mad Demon then entered the battlefield, but his condition appeared visibly poor. Lena smiled and confidently pointed out that she had already said their side would also grab attention. Mark was shocked, questioning how Lena could allow their representative to be in such a state. Lena reassured him that such injuries meant nothing to Mad Demon. Meanwhile, Mad Demon, filled with rage, marched forward. The announcer highlighted that Mad Demon's inhibitors were being released as he entered the arena. Mark was amazed by the power he witnessed and began cheering for Mad Demon with excitement. Fueled by anger, Mad Demon cursed those who had humiliated him. He swore to kill them, but reminded himself of a promise. First, he would take down the monster in front of him, and then settle the rest. With that, the second round of the preliminaries, Group 8 match, officially began. Mad Demon observed that, just like before, his energy had returned, but the flow within him felt distorted. Because of that, he was unable to use his martial arts techniques. He wondered if he would have to wait for the energy flow to stabilize again, just like last time. Meanwhile, Birkin's supporters erupted in loud cheers, urging him to fight and protect their planet. Hearing their voices echo through the stadium, Mad Demon was confused, questioning what they were shouting about. The supporters hailed Birkin as their hero, the guardian who had saved them from monsters, their planetary protector. The announcer pointed out that the crowd's passionate support filled the stands, yet Birkin had not made any real move so far. Mark commented on Birkin's titles, noting how impressive they sounded. A warrior said to possess the power of a billion, the planetary guardian, a divine protector. Lena remained calm, comparing him to the strongest man on Earth, Marcel. But in her thoughts, she acknowledged that Birkin was no ordinary opponent. His title wasn't exaggerated, and she silently hoped everything would go well. Suddenly, a companion standing behind Birkin shouted loudly into a microphone, calling for divine punishment to be unleashed on the enemy. The sound was so intense that everyone in the stadium paused what they were doing. Lena immediately recognized the thunderous voice as a signal. The real battle had begun. Mad Demon flinched at the volume, feeling like his eardrums might burst. He took a moment to assess Birkin, realizing that the warrior had felt emotionless earlier, but had now transformed in an instant. In the next moment, Birkin charged at Mad Demon and delivered a devastating punch. A blinding flash of light erupted across the stadium, followed by a powerful explosion. The announcer described how Birkin's strike had shaken the entire arena. This was the power of a guardian who carried the energy of his entire planet. However, the arena's advanced energy barrier managed to contain most of the impact. Birkin's supporters erupted with joy, cheering at the overwhelming display of power. The announcer recalled how Birkin's previous opponent, who also had regenerative powers, was defeated in just 3 seconds with this same attack. Now the question was whether Mad Demon could survive the same blow. But to everyone's surprise, Lena noticed that Mad Demon had narrowly dodged the attack. The announcer confirmed that Mad Demon had changed his trajectory just in time to avoid a critical hit. That strike had been specially designed to exploit the weaknesses of regeneration users, yet Mad Demon had successfully evaded it by using a completely different combat style. A remarkable move. Despite avoiding the hit, Mad Demon noticed that the areas affected by Birkin's power weren't regenerating. Lena, pleased by the outcome, turned to Marcel and acknowledged that the plan had worked. Mark, still confused, questioned whether dodging once could really make a difference. Lena smiled, admitting that even they weren't entirely sure if it would succeed. The scene shifts back to the day when Marcel and Mad Demon had fought during training. Lena asked Marcel if he noticed anything different about Mad Demon. Marcel observed that Mad Demon wasn't just different. Even with the suppressor on, he was gradually becoming faster. Despite being the one restrained, his presence felt increasingly dangerous. Marcel showed a wound on his body, one that Mad Demon had inflicted during training, emphasizing how serious the threat had become. Lena, after hearing this, concluded that 2 weeks would be enough. She decided to report the progress to HQ and instructed Marcel to continue the training for the remaining period. Marcel was left wondering what she was really thinking. Meanwhile, Mad Demon, lying on the ground, angrily questioned Marcel's intentions, calling the training pointless. He didn't believe someone like Marcel could ever train him. Marcel admitted that he probably looked pathetic in Mad Demon's eyes. Without the suppressor, his punches would likely feel like nothing, and his attacks would appear too slow to even dodge. But he believed that even repeated weak attacks could land eventually, just like dripping water could cut through stone. If Mad Demon's regenerative ability ever failed at the wrong moment, he could lose everything from just one hit. Though, he noted, luck that bad rarely came. Back in the present, Mad Demon, visibly irritated, couldn't believe he was actually being helped this way. Marcel reflected that with Mad Demon's overwhelming power, it was obvious he wouldn't respond well to being ordered around. So calling it training and letting him learn naturally must have been Lena's plan all along. Lena confirmed it. After observing Mad Demon, she realized that someone with such strong pride wouldn't respond to persuasion or emotional appeals. A subtle approach like this would be far more effective. She emphasized that in the fight against Birkin, dodging that critical strike was the most important aspect. Just then, Kyranos added her perspective. For a Tier 1 civilization, Earth's team had displayed an impressive understanding of the weaknesses in regenerators. The reason for training in the old arena, where the suppressor couldn't be removed, was to break Mad Demon's overdependence on his abilities, a chronic issue in those with regeneration powers. Normally, near-immortal combat would be seen as a strength, not a weakness. Yet the Earth team had made a surprisingly sharp observation. Unlike the first round where luck played a huge role, in the second match, where all information was public, the abilities of the second-in-command became crucial. Kyranos noted that Birkin's side didn't seem prepared for this kind of situation. Meanwhile, Twinkus was also watching the match. He called Birkin's team a bunch of idiots and wasn't surprised they had remained a Tier 2 civilization despite their power. Although he admitted that it would benefit him if the Earthling won, he didn't want Mad Demon to win too easily. He hoped Mad Demon would push himself even further. After all, he was the universe's strongest puppet. The announcer declared that after exchanging their initial attacks, both fighters entered into a long and intense standoff. Lena continued cheering for Mad Demon, urging him to stay alert and avoid the next attack as well. Mark, watching the fight unfold, questioned whether she was overreacting since Mad Demon would recover anyway, but Lena pointed out that regeneration wasn't flawless. Mad Demon's left arm still hadn't healed, highlighting a vulnerability. Curious, Mark asked about Birkin's abilities, noting that a transfer-eye being should only be able to manipulate their own energy. Lena confirmed that was correct. The ability allowed them to control and transfer their energy to others, making it more of a support-based power than one meant for combat. However, every living being had a limit to how much energy they could handle. Birkin exploited this by forcefully injecting energy beyond that threshold, causing internal destruction. For Mad Demon, this was especially dangerous because the attack damaged his energy-related organs, making it impossible to use his powers. Mark then wondered whether Birkin too would exhaust energy through such attacks. Lena explained that although that was true, Birkin's energy reserves were almost limitless. Even so, Lena thought to herself that using such overwhelming power would surely strain Birkin's body. It would likely be difficult to use that kind of attack repeatedly. They had intended to exploit Mad Demon's regenerative weakness with the first strike, and it was unlikely that another attack would be as prepared or effective. Meanwhile, among Birkin's supporters, frustration erupted. They scolded a subordinate for not assisting in battle, accusing him of making Birkin's mighty power seem like an illusion. But the subordinate, annoyed by their arrogance, thought to himself that the energy blast was a concentrated skill, limited to only a few uses per day. He had carefully analyzed the opponent's combat patterns to set up that moment, and now the goal was to ensure the next energy blast would land for sure. Determined, he shouted at Birkin to overwhelm the enemy. Hearing the shout, Mad Demon turned to glance back. In that instant, Birkin leapt toward him and threw a punch, but Mad Demon, smirking, recognized the real threat came from that kid, not Birkin himself. As Birkin launched another attack, Mad Demon swiftly dodged it. He jumped up and delivered a powerful kick to Birkin's face, sending him crashing to the ground. The announcer confirmed that contestant Mad Demon had successfully defended against Birkin's relentless strikes and even managed to land a counterattack. Lena, smiling, commented to Marcel that Mad Demon must have been inspired after fighting him. But Marcel, deep in thought, knew better. Having faced Mad Demon directly, he was certain. To an amateur, Mad Demon's techniques might resemble his own, but from the beginning, the gap in their skill levels was immense. Even with the suppressor on Mad Demon, Marcel knew he could never win. Meanwhile, Birkin's supporter, standing behind him, shouted furiously into the mic, urging Birkin to unleash his divine punishment. Mad Demon, unimpressed, wondered if they really expected a loudly announced attack to work on him. Birkin then charged at Mad Demon, but the latter swiftly dodged, confused by what he sensed. Mad Demon began to move away, trying to create distance. Seeing this, Birkin's supporter thought to himself that Mad Demon might have sensed something, but reassured himself that it was already too late. The supporter then shouted again, commanding Birkin to release his divine punishment across the entire arena. Hearing this, Mad Demon was startled, realizing the target wasn't just him, but the entire arena. Birkin activated his energy blast, which quickly spread across the battlefield. The announcer questioned whether Mad Demon would survive such a powerful attack. In the aftermath, Mad Demon was seen severely injured. One arm and one leg had been severed. The announcer confirmed that he failed to avoid the blast, and the devastating effects of the ultra-powerful energy wave were clear. Mad Demon, lying on the ground, was surprised that Birkin had used such a brute force tactic. It was something he hadn't anticipated. Weakened and unable to move, he collapsed on the arena floor. Birkin's supporters erupted in celebration, convinced of their victory. They praised Birkin's unmatched strength, calling him unbeatable. As the dust settled, Birkin approached Mad Demon. His supporter, still in control, ordered him to finish the fight. But instead of landing a killing blow, Birkin began to heal Mad Demon. The supporter, shocked by this act, realized no orders for healing had been given. In that moment, Birkin pleaded with Mad Demon, urging him to stand up and bring the battle to an end. The announcer reported that Mad Demon showed no signs of movement. If this continued any longer, the match would be declared over. Hearing this, Lena grew anxious and tried to rush toward Mad Demon, but he still lay unconscious on the ground. A flashback followed, revealing a moment from the past. A group of transferee species celebrated a major breakthrough. They had finally succeeded in bringing the legendary Guardian to life. They were astonished that it was actually possible to absorb the energy of hundreds of thousands of people. At that moment, a Guardian had been born to protect their planet. One of the transferee species explained that their civilization had long specialized in manipulating Cosmoforce. They had mastered it to the point of fully controlling individual energy. This energy could be concentrated to heal injuries or transferred to others to enhance strength. At that time, Lord Birkin had been infused with the energy of 300,000 people through this technique. Since the sheer amount of energy could overwhelm Birkin's body, it was sealed using a special device. To unlock this power, they would need to use the Trumpet of Liberation, turning Birkin into a true Guardian. The Guardian was then seen killing a monster. After the victory, a transferee species praised the Guardian, acknowledging that this was the strength of a warrior carrying the energy of 300,000 individuals. Another transferee addressed the Guardian, noting his struggle to move freely. He reassured the Guardian that it was normal. Controlling such power wouldn't come naturally right away. He promised to support him using the trumpet and reminded the Guardian that his mind and personality were still intact. Although uncomfortable now, things would eventually feel normal. From that point forward, he would be counting on the Guardian. Elsewhere, another monster was causing destruction, forcing some transferee to flee in fear. Suddenly, one of them spotted the Guardian approaching and shouted in excitement. The Guardian descended from above and swiftly took down the monster, making all the nearby transferee species cheer with joy. Lifting the monster's body, the Guardian flew away from the area. The scene shifted to the fortress of the transferee planet's Central Defense Force. Kallian, the one who controlled the Guardian, voiced his frustration to a superior. He found the demand to fight without damaging the city unrealistic. The official responded, stating that each deployment caused massive damage to civilian areas, and since the Guardian's power came from the people, protecting them was essential. He reminded Kallian that Birkin must also understand this responsibility. Birkin acknowledged the point and promised to be more cautious next time. Kalyan, irritated, refused to accept such reasoning. Soon after, he faced another monster. He urged the Guardian to snap out of his daze and focus. The Guardian responded, grabbing the monster's face. Kalyan encouraged him to throw the monster far away. He reminded himself once again that the Guardian's power came from the people, and minimizing harm to them was their duty. The Guardian then hurled the monster and unleashed a powerful attack to eliminate it. Later, Kalyan pleaded with the same old official for one final chance to fight. He promised to prove himself, but the old man firmly denied the request, warning that Kalyan had already reached his limit. Injecting more energy now would be too dangerous. Kalyan, shouting in desperation, argued that recklessness no longer mattered. In his view, the monster's death wouldn't change anything. As the competition moved them to the next stage of civilization, they could start over again from the beginning. The story returned to the present. Mad Demon finally regained consciousness. Birkin, now calm, told Mad Demon that he had to bring it all to an end. But Mad Demon, now furious, punched him in the face. He slammed Birkin down and told him not to speak such words to him but to say it to those around them instead. Watching this, Kalyan grew furious. Meanwhile, Mad Demon grinned with a creepy smile and remarked that Birkin, their weapon, certainly had a lot to say. Lena shouted in excitement, cheering for Mad Demon and expressing her faith in him. She had believed he would return. Meanwhile, Kalyan turned to Birkin and scolded him. If Birkin had stayed put, they would have secured victory. Kalyan questioned if Birkin even understood the consequences of his actions, but Birkin admitted he no longer wished to continue in the tournament. Kalyan, now yelling in frustration, accused Birkin of acting like a child. As the Guardian, enormous effort and resources had been invested in him. He was ordered to get up and fight for the future. Other transferee species began questioning Kalyan's tone toward the Guardian. Kalyan silenced them, telling those ignorant of the situation to stay quiet. Birkin then declared that he was no longer necessary for their future. Hearing this, Kalyan demanded an explanation. A flashback revealed a conversation between Kalyan and an elder. Kalyan had protested the decision to stop supplying energy, believing that increasing the supply was necessary to heal Birkin's wounds. The elder, however, insisted on initiating the disposal process. Kalyan, shocked, asked for clarification. The elder explained that the monster X001, which had been defeated earlier, was the last of its kind. Although known publicly as a mutant, it was actually a failed Guardian experiment from the past. With its fall, the threat had ended. Kalyan tried to argue that disposing of the Guardian would jeopardize the GSP tournament, but the elder informed him that the decision was final. Their civilization would no longer participate in the tournament. Even if this brought future consequences or lowered their status, it was the right path. Kalyan questioned whether Birkin, who had fought for them, wasn't also part of their civilization. The elder dismissed that notion, calling Birkin a weapon created through experimentation, not a living being. Maintaining Birkin's personality required constant use of Kalyan's life force. He reminded Kalyan of his own limits. Still, Kalyan had pleaded for one more chance to fight. Returning to the present, Birkin told Kalyan that his role to protect the planet from monsters was over. Kalyan was furious. He shouted that Birkin's words were weak and pitiful. True peace wasn't just for the spectators, but for Birkin too. If they advanced to the finals and their civilization's level rose, Birkin's damaged body and altered form could be repaired. He urged Birkin to stand up. Birkin began to rise. Kalyan shouted again, this time telling him to fight, not for others, but for himself. With that, Birkin's body began radiating the Guardian's aura. Mad Demon laughed, finding it amusing. This new version of Birkin was far more exciting than the lifeless puppet from earlier. Kalyan announced that from that moment on, it would be an all-out battle. The announcer commented on the immense power Birkin now held. He had become pure energy. As he slammed the arena with his massive fist, it was clear that even one strike could end the match. Mad Demon dodged again with incredible speed, but there was no counterattack. It raised the question, had Birkin become immune to physical attacks? Mad Demon, undeterred, began powering up. To withstand the intense battle, he channeled energy into both hands and activated an energy shield to protect his body. Birkin advanced relentlessly, but it wasn't enough yet. Kalyan shouted at Birkin, urging him not to stop and to keep attacking. Watching the fight, Kalyan thought that they only needed to land a single hit. Observers from another species began questioning what was going on with the Earthling. Kalyan grinned, realizing there had never been a need to rush. By now, both of Mad Demon's hands had been severed. Kalyan, now thrilled, declared that the Guardian's body had become a furnace of energy from countless people. A flimsy barrier couldn't possibly withstand that force. Birkin launched an attack on Mad Demon. Kalyan, pleased, encouraged him further. Now that Mad Demon couldn't dodge, it was time to finish the fight. Birkin readied another powerful strike, but Mad Demon, smiling, declared that he never intended to dodge from the beginning. Charging forward, he launched his own attack at Birkin. Watching this, Kuranos expressed disappointment, thinking that Mad Demon was throwing his life away in the end. She had high hopes, but now considered it a shame. Mad Demon's attack landed. Elsewhere, a member of the End Sapient species, civilization rank 1. named Melinda, was watching the battle from a distant location. He seemed pleased by what he witnessed. A powerful warrior had emerged, radiating intense energy even in the preliminaries. He recognized the direction as Leviathan's district and noted it had been a long time since he'd seen his brother. Marcel watched Mad Demon's power in shock, realizing that if that attack had landed directly, not even Birkin would have survived. The announcer addressed the spectators, informing them that the energy barrier around the arena was being reinforced in real time to prevent any explosions from affecting the audience. Viewers were asked to stay calm and continue enjoying the match. After the announcement, the announcer internally noted that a Tier 4 civilization-level energy barrier was reacting to the battle. For lower civilizations, this was turning out to be quite an impressive show. As the dust settled, the Guardian was seen still standing in the stadium. Kallian, overjoyed by the sight, celebrated their apparent victory. But Birkin looked at Kallian and apologized. With those final words, he collapsed to the ground. All the transferee species were stunned. Meanwhile, Mad Demon, lying on the ground, laughed. He remarked that Birkin had hesitated until the very end. It became clear that Birkin's true intention was never to kill, and although it disrupted Mad Demon's skystep, it didn't really matter to him. Getting back on his feet, Mad Demon stated that their debt was now settled. He had granted Birkin the death he wished for. The announcer then declared the match over. Earth's representative, Mad Demon, had won. Lena was overwhelmed with happiness upon hearing this. Marcel, in disbelief, recognized that this was Earth's true representative. Kallian rushed over to Birkin and collapsed beside him. Crying, he accused Mad Demon of using some cowardly trick. According to Kallian, Mad Demon's attacks shouldn't have been able to harm Birkin at all. Mad Demon laughed off the accusation and revealed that he had shared his chi with Birkin. Kallian, confused, questioned this revelation. Mad Demon explained that he had simply injected his chi into Birkin through his Cosmo Force. Since Birkin had already exceeded his limit, Mad Demon only added a little more. Kallian was left stunned. If he hadn't been so reckless, Birkin might still have been alive. Other transferee species began confronting Kallian. They mocked him for standing there idly after taking all their energy and losing in the second round of preliminaries. They questioned how someone from Earth could have caused such a defeat and blamed Kallian for wasting their energy on an outdated relic like Birkin. Furious, Kallian shouted back, defending Birkin. He declared Birkin a true hero who had protected them selflessly. Kallian questioned whether their civilization could endure future threats now. He warned that a complacent civilization would never know peace. Someday, beings far more ruthless than the monsters would target their planet, and the hypocrites in the Alliance wouldn't protect them like Birkin did when that time came. While speaking, Kallian's face was violently struck and torn apart. The announcer coldly reminded him not to insult the gods and ordered him to leave. Mad Demon turned and glared at the announcer with anger. Seeing this, Mark was startled and wondered why Mad Demon was reacting that way. Suddenly, a new voice asked if they had arrived too late. The announcer recognized the figure and cursed under his breath. Everyone around immediately bowed their heads in respect to the approaching figure. The presence belonged to none other than Melinda of Civilization Rank 1. Melinda observed the battlefield, noting that the warrior with immense energy had fallen. He then turned to Mad Demon and asked if that made him the winner of the match. In response, Mad Demon laughed, acknowledging their long-awaited meeting with the one known as the zenith of this world. Everyone in the stadium bowed in reverence as Melinda made his entrance. He walked forward and stood before Mad Demon, who instantly recognized him as the zenith of this universe. The announcer, watching from the side, grew agitated. He cursed Melinda's presence, frustrated to witness this scene once again. Deep down, he believed that this display of worship was merely a residual imprint left in everyone's cells after the Great Galactic War, not genuine devotion. A flashback revealed the history of that war. Around 100 million years ago, the universe had plunged into a resource crisis. This crisis ignited the flames of the Great Galactic War, a conflict that lasted 3,000 years and wiped out more than half of all civilizations. Just when it seemed that the light of civilization would be completely extinguished, a single being ended the war in only 10 days. That being was Insapien Mulender Enriel. He had intervened, stopped the senseless slaughter, brought peace, and established a new order. From that day on, civilizations began worshipping him and his allies as gods, laying the foundation for the Galactic Alliance. Back in the present, a security drone approached the announcer and noted that thanks to Mulender's appearance, their real-time ratings had once again reached number 1. The announcer, furious, destroyed the drone using his powers and claimed the credit for himself, insisting it was due to his exceptional hosting. He then turned to Mulender and demanded he leave the arena, citing rule violations. Mulender responded calmly, stating that he had no intention of staying long and merely wished to greet the one who had defeated the powerful warrior. The announcer, losing his temper, stormed behind Mulender and ordered him to leave immediately. Mulender, unfazed, continued speaking, but was quickly interrupted again. The announcer accused him of disrespecting the rules, and him personally. Mulender calmly pointed out that it was in fact the announcer who had been acting recklessly, ignoring the rules and making selfish decisions that were now causing disruptions in the tournament. The announcer yelled in defiance, declaring that in the arena his word was absolute law. Mulander noted that the announcer was still as reckless as ever. In response, the announcer began forming a dark energy sphere. Twinkus, observing the scene, realized that it wasn't ordinary energy, but something resembling a black hole phenomenon. As the sphere formed, the entire stadium began to shatter, and the audience started flying into the air. Mulander observed the chaos and explained that the announcer's godlike power allowed him to disassemble and reconstruct any matter. Anything that touched the sphere, organic or inorganic, would dissolve instantly like liquid. The announcer, filled with rage, promised to show Mulander the consequences of breaking arena rules. Mulander questioned whether the announcer truly didn't care if his audience melted away, but the announcer blamed him for starting the fight. Seeing no other choice, Mulander gave a command to the judges of Sector 3 to protect the civilians in the arena. Virtues appeared and began shielding the civilizations, declaring loyalty to the Supreme God. Judge Dominiel and Judge Etherian also arrived to assist. Mulander, noting their presence, commented that the only one left was their clumsy little brother. He looked at Mad Demon and found something strange. Despite the chaos, Mad Demon remained unaffected by the barrier. Mulander questioned how a mere human body could withstand Leviathan's gravity while also possessing enhanced regeneration. It seemed clear now that Mad Demon's victory over the Energy Warrior wasn't just luck. Mulander advised Mad Demon to hold on a little longer. Leviathan's reconstruction wasn't meant to be an absorption technique, so it would soon stop. Turning back, Mulander asked Leviathan, now the announcer, if he was satisfied. The announcer, more furious than ever, unleashed more of his power and reminded Mulander that he had personally created the restraints that limited him. In his current state, Mulander couldn't stop him. The announcer swore to expose Mulander's limits to the entire universe. Mulander calmly pointed out that inside the arena, he was allowed to release at least one of those restraints. With that, he decided to end the conflict. He used his power to break the announcer's sphere, shocking him. Mulander then apologized for the incident and handed over control of the remaining matches back to the announcer. Facing Mad Demon once more, Mulander acknowledged his strength and congratulated him. He expressed hope that their conversation would continue in the future and reminded Mad Demon to reach the main arena on time. Lena, watching all of this, was left stunned. Mad Demon began walking away, visibly injured. Lena ran to him in concern. He held her hand and asked if the person he had just encountered was also a contestant. Lena confirmed that Mulander was the End Sapien representative and the final opponent in the tournament. To her knowledge, no one had ever defeated him since the tournament began. Mad Demon instinctively understood something deeper. If he wanted to uncover the source of this feeling, he would have to face Mulander again. Determined, Mad Demon resolved to climb to the very top of the tournament. The scene opened with Belkanos addressing the audience, announcing the start of the second preliminary round. This was the Group 8 match, and since Leviathan was unwell, Belkanos would temporarily take over as commentator. He humbly mentioned he wasn't an important figure and quickly moved on to introduce the contestants. Representing the Decabruzans and ranked 6,300th in civilization rankings was Braxon, while Kalmar, representing Serentiuma, held the 5,200th rank. The match between these two was about to begin. Meanwhile, Marcel turned to Mark with a question, wondering why all three of them had to attend the match in person. Mark explained that the winner would be their next opponent, but Marcel didn't see why that required his presence too. Mark pointed out that handling the unpredictable Mad Demon alone wasn't an option. Marcel then suggested that their team leader, Lena, would be better suited for the job. However, Mark revealed that Lena was currently working part-time. During the first round, she had broken the recovery machine and had to cover the repair costs, which had completely drained their operations budget. As a result, the entire team had taken up part-time jobs in rotation. Marcel realized this explained why he hadn't seen their coach since the last match. Mark noted that Marcel had been unconscious, so he wouldn't have known. Curious, Marcel asked how they even managed to work on such an advanced planet. Mark explained that because of GSP's status, lower civilizations weren't permitted to stay, and advanced civilizations had no reason to work there. Only professionals were sent, while the rest indulged in gambling and sightseeing. He noted that in such places, whether it was aliens or humans, the pattern remained the same. Only Tier 1 or 2 civilizations were truly desperate to rise. Most visitors at GSP were simply there for entertainment. Mark then noticed Mad Demon watching the match with intense focus and wondered if he had always been this serious. Eventually, the match concluded with Braxon declared as the winner. Mark acknowledged that their next opponent had been decided. Soon, another match ended with Rakina as the winner, followed by Brunner winning yet another match. The announcer then informed the audience that Group 54's match would begin after a short break. As time passed, Mark turned to Mad Demon, noting that they had already been watching matches for 6 hours. He questioned whether Mad Demon intended to sit there the entire time. In response, Mad Demon asked if Mark had been staying just because of him. Mark confirmed it. Mad Demon remarked that he didn't need to consider Mark's convenience and said he would be fine on his own. Mark expressed concern, saying that if Mad Demon disappeared again like last time, it could be problematic. But Mad Demon assured him there was no need to worry. He had his own reasons for participating in the tournament and urged Mark to stop stressing about unnecessary things. Accepting this, Mark got up and mentioned that it was time for his shift. Before leaving, he informed Marcel that their team leader would be arriving after work. Marcel said he would stay until she showed up and told Mark to go ahead. As Mark walked away, he reflected on Mad Demon's words. Though they weren't particularly impressive, for a brief moment, just as their team leader had once said, Mad Demon truly looked like their savior. As Marcel remained seated, he found himself deep in thought. During training, things had never been this awkward, but now that it was just the two of them, the silence felt heavy. He didn't know what to do. Breaking the silence, Mad Demon asked if Marcel had anything else to say about fighting styles, like he did before. Marcel admitted that he wasn't strong enough to teach anything. Mad Demon replied that he already knew Marcel was weak, even without being told. However, after his battle with Birkin, he had come to understand something important. The talent to become strong and the talent to make others strong were entirely different. He questioned whether this concept was too much for someone as weak as Marcel. Marcel then mentioned there was something that had always made him curious whenever he watched Mad Demon's matches. At that moment, Lena arrived, out of breath from rushing. She had hurried over just in case, but was immediately struck by the strange atmosphere between the two. The scene shifted to a month later. The announcer stood before the crowd, declaring the start of the third preliminary round. Representing a civilization built entirely on strength and ranked 6043rd, Braxton, the leader of the Decabruisans, stepped into the arena. His opponent was someone who no longer belonged to the lowest-ranked civilization, Mad Demon, now ranked 8700th. With no delays, the match was set to begin. As soon as it started, the announcer was stunned to see Mad Demon closing his eyes. He wondered aloud whether this was a strategy to provoke his opponent. Braxton, irritated by Mad Demon's apparent arrogance, charged forward. He believed Mad Demon was being cocky just because he had defeated a Tier 3 civilization. As he rushed in to attack, Mad Demon suddenly opened his eyes. In an instant, he unleashed his Blood Demon technique and struck Braxton with a powerful punch, defeating him in a single move. The crowd was left in complete shock. The announcer confirmed the outcome. Within just 30 seconds, Mad Demon had secured victory. Reflecting on the moment, Mad Demon thought about Marcel, the redhead. He began to consider that Marcel might actually turn out to be useful. The representative of the Montrax civilization, Mantor, hailed from a race that believed pure instinct was the source of true power. In every match, he had completely dominated his opponents using nothing but raw physical strength, never backing down despite any disadvantage. Yet even someone like Mantor had been overwhelmed right from the start. Watching Mad Demon's fighting skills left the entire audience thrilled. Lena found herself wondering if this was the true extent of Mad Demon's power. A brief flashback revealed a conversation between Lena and Mad Demon. Lena asked if he had been unable to fight at full strength due to the suppressor's side effects. Mad Demon confirmed it, explaining that after the necklace was removed, his energy flow had become disrupted. Lena initially thought it didn't sound too serious, but Mad Demon made it clear. Without proper energy flow, most people wouldn't even be able to move their bodies. Although there was a way to correct it, doing so while being attacked could cause reverse flow, making the situation worse. Lena asked whether he could normally control the energy flow. Mad Demon assured her he could, especially when using specific methods for disrupted flow. She then wondered what would happen if that method was combined with the Guardian's Cosmo Force. Back in the present, Mad Demon walked away after winning his match. Lena reflected on how the first and second rounds had felt like a series of crises. At the time, everything had seemed unfair, but in hindsight, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. Later, in Sector 3's stadium cafeteria, the team gathered for a meal. Marcel asked Mad Demon why he preferred eating with his hands. Mad Demon replied that it was simply more comfortable for him. Marcel then turned to Lena, asking if the Earth team had really been working part-time in shifts. Lena assured him there was nothing to worry about, as the other Earth members were managing just fine. Marcel felt relieved. Since he had received his prosthetic leg, he thought it would be nice to contribute. Lena explained that the financial issue had already been handled. She had paid Mark back within 2 weeks. Marcel was surprised, and Lena further explained that the local currency was worth 500 times more than Earth's. However, due to the high cost of living, saving money was still a challenge. Despite that, the other team members from Earth were working happily, so he didn't need to stress over it. Mad Demon then asked if those were the only participants in the tournament. Lena was confused by the question. Mad Demon revealed that after reviewing all matches following the second round, he found every team unimpressive. Their abilities weren't even worth absorbing and wouldn't stand a chance against the winged opponent. Suddenly, Twinkus appeared, accusing Mad Demon of aiming for Mulander and saying he didn't know his place. Lena demanded to know why Twinkus was there. Twinkus stated he had something important to say and asked her to follow him. Lena questioned his intentions, but Twinkus assured her he didn't plan to harm anyone. Mad Demon interrupted, suggesting Twinkus speak in front of everyone, but Twinkus insisted on privacy, pointing out there were too many eyes around. Marcel slammed his hand on the table, refusing to engage with someone like Twinkus. Twinkus shot back, saying he had nothing to say to a loser and that his business was with Mad Demon. Mad Demon responded that he had no business with Twinkus either. Twinkus then asked if Mad Demon desired more power. If so, he offered to show him a way to instantly take his strength to the next level. The group decided to go with him. As they walked, Marcel asked Lena if it was really okay, reminding her that pixies had attacked them before. Lena acknowledged the past incident but pointed out that it had occurred in a deserted street and inside the barely visited Civilization Promotion Hall. Now, they were inside the main stadium of Sector 3, making it impossible to manipulate the security systems like before. She reasoned that if Twinkus was telling the truth about a way to enhance Mad Demon's strength, the risk was worth it. Suddenly, a large group of pixie species surrounded them. Seeing this, Marcel warned Lena that this wasn't just risky, it was extremely dangerous. Mad Demon urged Twinkus to hurry and get to the point. One of the pixies angrily lashed out, calling them savages and expressing violent intent. Twinkus ordered the pixie to stay quiet and reminded everyone that something more important than revenge was at stake. He had brought them there to make a proposal. If they accepted the offer, their power would surpass the limits of lower civilizations. As he said this, he revealed an object, explaining that the method involved using it. Lena examined the ring and the contract, reading aloud the conditions. Article 1, Clause 1 stated that Mad Demon must wear the Eternal Steel Ring in all future matches. Clause 2 required him to win at least one match in the main tournament, or else pay a fine of 50 million Zen for the ring's value. She was shocked by the absurdity of the deal. Twinkus reminded them that this was his way of helping them surpass the limits of a lower civilization. Even beings as primitive as them should recognize the ring's value. Due to Galactic Federation laws prohibiting unauthorized interference with other civilizations, he claimed to be offering it as a donation under simple terms and told them to consider it an honor. Mad Demon thought about the ring's material, realizing it seemed useful. Lena asked why Twinkus was helping them all of a sudden. Twinkus brushed the question aside, saying beings like them didn't need to know. At that moment, Bolter arrived and greeted Twinkus. Internally, Twinkus was irritated by Bolter's sudden appearance. He asked Bolter why he was there. Bolter responded lightheartedly, pretending to be hurt, and said he only came to thank him. Due to Twinkus's actions, their Arctinadium stocks had been soaring. Bolter then noticed the others and mocked them as primitive creatures standing in his way, demanding they move. When they didn't respond, Bolter became angry and tried to punch Mad Demon. However, Mad Demon blocked the punch effortlessly, leaving Bolter stunned. He couldn't believe the attack had been deflected. Recognizing Mad Demon as the Earthling, Bolter examined the ring and questioned why he had it. He figured Twinkus must be desperate, trying to boost the rank of someone who had defeated him as a last-ditch effort to salvage pride. Despite the effort, Bolter mocked the Eternal Steel, saying it had already been exposed as worthless. Still, due to the long-standing relationship between their civilizations, he offered a warning not to take it personally. Twinkus, now irritated, proposed a match between Bolter and the Earthling. Bolter was confused and questioned his sanity. Twinkus raised the stakes by vowing to serve Bolter's civilization for life if Bolter won. Hearing this, Bolter agreed and left, telling them to wait for him. Before leaving, Twinkus added a final condition, pointing at Bolter. Mad Demon responded by tearing the contract in front of everyone, calling it trash. Twinkus was enraged that he would still speak like that even after their match. Mad Demon dismissed the ring as just a rock and said there were plenty of other ways to grow stronger. Twinkus reminded him where he was and demanded he sign the contract immediately. Lena warned Twinkus to stop, hinting that any further aggression might summon the arbitrator. Twinkus grew furious, but Mad Demon calmly placed a finger on his forehead and made it clear they would set the terms of this deal. He agreed to use the so-called useless rock and even accepted the challenge to fight the tall brute from earlier. Twinkus, taken aback, realized he had underestimated Mad Demon. He initially thought of him as a brute who only knew how to fight, but now he saw the intelligence behind that threat. The scene shifted to the 300 floor practice arena where Mad Demon and Bolter stood face to face. Mad Demon removed his suppressor, surprised that it could actually be taken off. Bolter approached, unsure whether Mad Demon was brave or just foolish, but gave him credit for not running. In response, Mad Demon confidently pointed a finger at him. Bolter grabbed his hand and spoke, claiming it was humiliating to fight someone from a primitive civilization. As a handicap, he offered a secret about his civilization's cosmoforce. Before he could explain further, Mad Demon punched him in the face using his other hand, but the impact broke Mad Demon's fingers. Bolter revealed his ability to give his entire body the same hardness as any metal he touched. This ability applied even to his internal organs. He declared that nothing in the universe could defeat him now. Mad Demon calmly remarked that they seemed to believe the weapon mattered more than the wielder. He recalled an era when lunatics dedicated their lives to splitting boulders with twigs. Very few ever succeeded before dying, but just before he was sealed away, he had met one of them. Bolter was shocked that their prince had lost to someone so primitive. Suddenly, Mad Demon slashed him with a sword, stating that it had actually worked. Bolter's body was sliced to pieces. Laughing, Mad Demon said it was just like that. Seeing this, Bolter's teammate was left speechless. Mad Demon admitted he would never waste his time on that kind of training, even though it had worked. Clarice Ive looked at the ring on Mad Demon's finger and found it hard to believe that such a small item could hold so much value. Lena explained that she had already accepted the item, but felt it necessary to inform them regardless. From Clarice's perspective, anything that could strengthen their forces was welcome. However, receiving such an expensive item from their former opponents felt a bit awkward. Lena reassured her that there was no need for concern, as the decision was ultimately made in favor of their civilization. In fact, the contract was structured so that they would receive payment instead. Mad Demon brought up the topic of another upcoming match. Lena confirmed it. He then suggested dropping the conversation and heading to watch the match. Clarice agreed to hear the full explanation later and let them go. After they left, Marcel expressed admiration for Mad Demon, noting how he managed to save Earth in just a few months. Compared to that, even with planetary support for over a decade, his own efforts felt insufficient. Clarice disagreed and reminded him that they were only standing there because he had refused to give up that day. Marcel acknowledged her words and agreed. Mad Demon and Lena entered the stadium where Panon's match was underway. Mad Demon wondered if one of the two fighters would be his next opponent. Lena observed that the previous match hadn't ended yet. She noted that the opponent was a Titanarian, a species capable of controlling powerful, invisible arms. The announcer narrated that Panon charged at Ragno once again, only for Ragno to neutralize the attack instantly. A relentless barrage followed. Lena questioned Panon's reckless strategy and wondered if he was unaware of his opponent's abilities. She considered the possibility that, as a Stage 1 civilization, it wasn't easy for him to access detailed intel. Something about him felt off. She remembered that he was the youngest of the 3 Piglos, but dismissed it as not her concern. Lena approached Grog to ask what was happening. Grog seemed confused. Lena reminded him that Panon had previously manifested an overwhelming cosmo force, yet now he was being completely dominated. Compared to Agni, Panon seemed like nothing. Grog admitted he didn't know either. He explained that his brother hadn't been in good condition lately, and couldn't fight at full strength during the early stages of a match. Lena began to sense something. She thought Panon might be suffering from the same side effects as Mad Demon. Though faint, she started to feel the presence behind him. This suggested her strength was also returning. She just needed to hold on a bit longer. Suddenly, Ragno attacked Panon. The announcer declared that although Panon held on well, he was down, and the countdown would begin. Just then, Panon activated his Cosmo Force and launched a counterattack. The announcer reacted with disbelief, announcing that Panon had made a complete recovery. Mad Demon recognized the technique and began to suspect Panon was the same person from back then. As Panon stood, he declared that he now understood why Ragno was called the Butcher of Lower Civilizations. The invisible arms only affected those unable to wield Cosmo energy. With that, Panon launched another attack and defeated Ragno. The announcer declared that Ragno was unable to continue, and Panon had won the 6th block's preliminary round 4. Lena turned to Grog, who was equally surprised. He realized that Panon's earlier weakness was due to something else. Lena confirmed it was because of the suppressor's side effects, which had restricted both his Cosmo energy and physical abilities. Grog wondered why Panon had hidden this. Lena explained that he hadn't hidden it intentionally. He simply didn't know the exact cause, as the information wasn't easy to access. Grog concluded that their teams were in the same situation. Lena agreed, mentioning that they had found a way to slightly reduce the effects. She advised Grog to inform his brother of the true reason. Grog, though hesitant to accept help, decided to return the favor. He offered to share information with Lena. She asked what kind of information he meant. Grog revealed that it was something Lena's kind probably couldn't access easily, intel related to the preliminary finals. Grog confirmed that the 5th match would be the preliminary finals and revealed that the match format was expected to be different from the current one-on-one setup. Lena was surprised, noting that they hadn't received any official announcements. Grog explained that the information would only be released after all 4 10th round matches concluded. When Lena questioned how he knew this, Grog clarified that among the 3 civilizations that advanced, some had obtained this information early and approached them. That's how he found out. He mentioned that these civilizations were forming alliances. Although his side declined the offer and didn't get full rule details, it was likely that the final match wouldn't be one-on-one. Believing he had repaid his debt, Grog left. Lena began to process the possibility of changing match rules in the finals. At that moment, the announcer declared that Serpan had won Group 22's match and would be advancing to the preliminary finals. Mad Demon asked Lena if that was the average level of the competitors. Meanwhile, Lena wondered why no one had approached them if the information Grog shared was true. Mad Demon tried to get her attention, but she was deep in thought, considering that even though their civilization's ratings were low, Mad Demon's performance wasn't inferior to the Piglos. Lena then asked Mad Demon to come with her to check something. They arrived at Zone 3's Z Street, where Mad Demon guessed that Lena intended to lure someone out. She confirmed it, believing the street made it easier for others to approach them than inside the arena. Though not fond of teaming up with aliens, Lena believed that if the format changed, aligning with strong players could boost their chances of survival. Those who already knew the rules were likely strong. Mad Demon noted that the ones who'd approach them were probably strong and welcomed the chance to see their level. 3 days later, the two sat on a quiet spot in Z Street. Mad Demon grew impatient, questioning when these strong fighters would show up. Lena also wondered why no one had approached them despite reaching the outskirts. Just then, Kyranos suddenly spoke beside Lena, startling her. Lena asked what she was doing there. Kyranos reminded her of her interest in Mad Demon and pointed out that no one would approach them first. Lena was confused, mentioning that even the Piglos were approached. Kyranos clarified that it wasn't about Mad Demon's skill, but his absorption ability. Now that everyone in Zone 3 knew about it, no one wanted to risk having their powers absorbed. Kyranos added that she might consider teaming up on the condition that Mad Demon's information would be shared, as she too was a competitor representing the Euphoria civilization. Lena began suspecting that the finals being a team match was now certain. Mad Demon recognized Kyranos as the only somewhat useful fighter among the remaining participants. Kyranos accepted the label, admitting she was among the stronger ones. Mad Demon questioned her confidence and wondered if she was hiding some incredible ability. Lena warned him not to get close so carelessly. Kyranos laughed, teasing that her ability might indeed tempt someone like him. Lena, growing suspicious, thought they shouldn't get involved with someone like her. Then it hit her. Kyranos was dangerous. Lena asked if any team was even willing to take her in. Kyranos responded confidently that, based on combat ability alone, she ranked high, so there was no reason why not. But Lena pointed out that what she said earlier about no one wanting to team up applied to her too. Her civilization had focused on stealing information through advanced technology. Mad Demon dismissed the concern, saying his information was already known. But Lena warned that Kyranos' civilization wouldn't just take abilities. They would steal everything about him. That stolen knowledge would then spread across the entire universe. Mad Demon realized that his data might hold crucial secrets about Earth's civilization that even modern humans had missed. There was no way he could allow such valuable information to fall into the wrong hands. Kyranos claimed that her civilization's official strength lay in their tools, with combat being a separate matter. Mad Demon laughed, saying it sounded like she had plenty of tricks up her sleeve, which only made him more curious to team up. Kyranos considered that even the underworld didn't mess with these two. Maybe this gamble was worth the risk. She then proposed a deal. During the preliminary finals, neither side would object to or complain about any information or ability theft. Mad Demon agreed, saying he already intended to do that. Lena realized there was no point in worrying since the final decision was his. She then asked if it was possible to get more teammates for such an unpopular team. Kyranos was shocked and questioned if they had really come out here without knowing the full details. The preliminary finals, she explained, wouldn't be a team match, but a solo death match. Lena now understood the true goal of forming alliances: survival, not victory. Kyranos then urgently told them to turn around and head back to the arena without looking back. Lena was confused, wondering what the big deal was if it was just a death match. Kyranos revealed that the match had already started. Unbeknownst to them, a nearby alien from another species had overheard everything. Speaking to himself, he cursed the spider for always catching on quickly, but concluded that there was still plenty of time left. The scene shifts to Team Earth's waiting room, where Clarice Ive questioned Lena about the urgency that required the entire team to gather. Lena informed everyone that from this point forward, no one was to leave the stadium. The story then moved 2 hours back. Kyranos had revealed to Mad Demon and Lena that there was a psycho murderer among the Zone 3 preliminary finalists. This individual had been targeting finalists one by one outside the stadium. Lena asked for clarification, wondering if these eliminations were happening beyond the stadium grounds. Kyranos confirmed it. She explained that the murderer held an advantage outside the stadium due to the ability to manifest innate biological traits despite wearing a suppressor. His species possessed hypnosis as a unique trait, using it to lure victims into their dens before hunting them. This was how the killer advanced. Every match after the first had been won by default. While the stadium remained a relatively safe zone due to tight security, the enemy was relentless. She warned Lena to stay alert and to watch over her own kind as well. Back in the present, Clarice Ive processed the threat and asked if they could end up as hostages. Lena confirmed the real possibility and emphasized the need for all external personnel to return immediately. Mark then mentioned that Director Marshall Steele hadn't been reachable since morning. He had left for business outside the perimeter. Mark questioned whether his disappearance might be connected to the recent briefing. Lena suggested reporting the incident to the Federation at once. But before anything could be done, Kyranos arrived and dismissed the idea. According to her, the enemy left no traces behind. These were the best specialists in space. The Federation wasn't a charity that could be relied upon for blind help. If there was no evidence, even full-scale resource deployment would be useless. That would become the fate of their civilization, just like all the killer's previous victims. Kyranos coldly asked how they would respond, implying the solution was simple: abandon the missing comrade. Instead of weighing a civilization's fate on one individual, they just had to wait for the preliminary finals. Angered, Marcel insisted he would act. At that moment, Mad Demon entered and declared that he would rescue Marshall Steele. He had always wanted to meet the killer and saw no reason to refuse the invitation now. Kyranos reminded him of the risks. He would be fighting while wearing a suppressor. She questioned if he had found a way to battle without using Cosmo Force. She warned that even if he had, once he was hypnotized and taken into the enemy's den, it would be over. Mad Demon responded with a plan. If he wasn't the one being dragged, everything should be fine. The scene then shifted to Zone 3's F Street. Mad Demon trailed a figure hidden behind a large snake-like creature. As the snake opened its mouth, Mad Demon realized that he had overestimated this prey. Without Cosmo Force, this opponent was just another ordinary being from an inferior civilization. The snake lunged at Mad Demon to attack, but in a swift motion, Mad Demon drew his sword and eliminated it with a single strike. The figure nearby was stunned to see Mad Demon and questioned whether he was really an Earth representative. Mad Demon confirmed it and explained that the trap had worked just as he hoped. He had once fallen for the same trick, which made him confident it would succeed. He knew the enemy's ability to gather information was limited. One small mistake would usually summon the real version of the opponent, which probably made the killer act even more cautiously. Ironically, that caution had led to a critical mistake. The attacker noted that not only did the decoy resemble Mad Demon perfectly, but the energy felt exactly the same. Mad Demon clarified that he had flooded the decoy with his own energy to make it convincing. Just then, another alien species named Version appeared. He identified the trick used, a Transperian's Cosmo Force, and guessed that Mad Demon must have tampered with things back in the arena. Even with that, he wondered how Mad Demon had entered the restricted zone. Mad Demon replied casually that he had simply picked the lock and walked in. Version acknowledged the effort put into the rescue and asked if Mad Demon had a plan to make it out alive. Mad Demon, unfazed, smirked and told them to start worrying about themselves.